Mabusai! Hello! Please don't mind that I was a little late today. By a little, I mean half an hour. I have had a morning. Wait, hold up. I think the music's too loud. Let me lower it for you guys. Mabusai! Hello! I'm so sorry. I had to make a few bread deliveries, but it's all good. It's fine. I hope everybody is having a wonderful day, and if not, I hope your day gets better. It's React Wednesday, so we're gonna be reacting today. It'll be a lot of fun. Yes, yes, yes. It's all good, just join. Let's go! Let's go. Oh my goodness. It's been a 24 hours. It's been the last, for sure, 12 hours. I mentioned yesterday, I was like, I have a bunch of sourdough loaves I need to bake, and I was up until like 2 a.m. baking them. So yeah, I went to go deliver them before stream, and yeah, I carried a bag of like 12 loaves into a medical office, and I dropped them off, and I was like, all right, where's my money? So that was fun. My hands are gonna permanently smell like freaking jalapeno for the next 2 days, and I'm kind of unhappy. What is a fun Pokemon deck that makes both players laugh? I don't know. I don't think there's a deck that makes anybody laugh except for the player themselves. I guess I don't know, the Harlequin card? That, okay, I was judging a cup this past weekend, and somebody, one of the finalists in the cup was playing Dragapult with a Harlequin, so you have to flip a coin. If you hit heads, you draw more cards than your opponent. Like, you both shuffle your hand in the deck and you draw 5 and they draw 4. But if you flip tails, it's the opposite. Don't touch your eyes. Here's the thing. I learned my lesson last time, so I like double gloved this time around. But I still can smell like the jalapeno on my hands. I can still smell it, and I still have orders next week I need to fulfill. You know what's been really killing me? A lot of people have been ordering cinnamon rolls. Cinnamon rolls take so freaking long to make, which is why I actually charge a lot of money for cinnamon rolls. Kai, thank you so much for the 27 months. Good luck. I still didn't learn my lesson. I would like to see you react to Pokemon Talk. We're not reacting to Pokemon Talk. Sorry. We're reacting to 2 M&J TV videos today, and then we're reacting to Wolfie. Because I've been really enjoying Wolfie's videos recently. They've been a lot of fun. They've been a lot of fun. What, you delivering for Iron House? I need to come up with different cinnamon roll flavors. Because I've only been doing like the classic, just like cinnamon roll where it's just cinnamon, brown sugar. And then the thing that I've been kind of like experimenting with is, I don't know if you guys eat cinnamon rolls or you have. Please tell me what you prefer. Do you prefer a vanilla frosting on it or a cream cheese? Because I really love cream cheese frosting, but I recently learned that actually a lot of people don't like cream cheese frosting, which makes me sad. But so I've been making my last few batches with just vanilla. Do you bake as a side business? I do. It is a side hustle. I do bake. I only bake for like my locals, and I bake for like a few medical dental offices. And then I have a friend where she works at a school, so sometimes she will give me orders. You touch your eyes after you can go blind? I don't think you go blind. It definitely stings. I have had that happen to me before. I prefer no frosting. Hey, some people prefer no frosting. Cream cheese is fire. I agree. I think cream cheese is great. I'm having sad boy lunch with walnuts. No. No. I don't know. I want to try like a banana walnut flavor. That sounds so good. Banana walnuts. My sister bakes a lot of desserts. She made a Dubai chocolate cheesecake. Dubai chocolate's good. You know, it's so funny. I feel like the Dubai chocolate craze has kind of gone out of control. They're selling like Dubai chocolate vodka now, and I'm like, what happened? What happened to to this just being a regular dessert. Why are we trying to buy chocolate everything? Why couldn't we just leave it alone? It actually calls you blind because your immune system reacts to your eyeballs and attacks it. I've rubbed my eyes with jalapenos, so I don't know. I've never had to. It stings, but I've never gone blind. Cinnamon pecan would go so hard. Do you guys say pecan or pecan? I say both. I'm like that kind of crazy person where I say both. Hi, Yam! Banana walnut is great. Banana walnut is awesome. Speaking of, it's been a while since I've baked banana bread. I love banana bread. Banana bread at work, not pecan. Pecan? Pecan? I don't know. I think I say pecan more, but I tend to kind of go between both pronunciations. But yeah, now that it's summertime, a lot of my like regular clients that I bake for, they all know that I'm no longer like in my semester anymore. So they've been sending me an astronomical amount of orders, which is fine. I'm very happy to you know, have business. It just takes a long time. It takes a long time. My poor sourdough starter. I pee in a can. That's disgusting. But yeah, I'm trying to bake. I used to bake a lot of like macarons, like the French macarons. I haven't baked them in a few years, so I'm hoping sometime this week I can try my hand at them again. I used to bake them a lot in high school because I would make them for friends and stuff. Macarons are very tough, yes, because you have to. So the thing about macarons is that there is like, you have to have a certain consistency with the meringue, and if you go too thick or go too thin, it's just not gonna come out right. Fritz, thank you so much for the 24 months tier 3. I appreciate it. Fancy cookies, sourdough pizza. Sourdough pizza's fire. Sourdough pizza's so good. What's great is that you can prep like pizza dough with sourdough starter and just keep it in the freezer. Or you can use like sourdough discard and make that your crust. And it's so good. It's so good. I'm trying to experiment more. That's so, another thing I've been working on this week is I think I perfected my bagel recipe. I don't know what is it with like baking bagels, but apparently it's like one of the easier recipes you can make, but I just couldn't get it right for months. So last week, or was it last? No, it wasn't last. I guess, I don't know, Sunday I was trying them out and they turned out awesome and I was really, really pleased. So maybe I'll start selling bagels. I don't know. They are a little bit of a labor of love, or maybe not so much a labor of love, but they do take time. They do take time. I need to get better at baking cookies. I have like 2 really good cookie recipes, but they're not perfect. And I need to do better. I need to experiment more. But here's the problem. I bake so much, but I can't eat. Like, I'll eat like maybe one of them, and then I have to give the rest away. Which I guess is when friends come in, right? You can just be like, hey, by the way, I was recipe testing. Here's a bunch of stuff. For free. I don't know, I love baking. Baking is very, I think, therapeutic for me. It keeps my brain happy and healthy. Happy and healthy. It gives me something to do that isn't internet related. Does that make sense? Something to do that isn't like staring at a screen. Like I could just be in my flow state. The kitchen. The worst part though is doing the dishes. I hate doing dishes. But you have to do them, right? Hi, baby. Welcome in. I love when friends bake for me. Dude, I have a feeling that's why my friends are sometimes extra nice to me, because they know I have something. I think it's funny because I started bringing like baked goods to my locals, right? About maybe a few months ago, because I had all of this leftover baking or like baked goods and I didn't know what to do with it. And my friend was like, well, why don't you just bring it to locals? Just give it away there. So now every single time I show up, even if I don't have anything, they ask like, hey, Sai, do you have anything? this week. Like, there was one time, I think I brought blueberry lemon muffins. I brought scones, cookies, cinnamon rolls. It's the whole shebang. The whole shebang. I'm not naming Phineas and Ferb's sister. I know where that's going. Hi, Megan. Welcome in. Doing dishes for baking is a pain. Oh, yeah. No, for sure. Especially sourdough. So sourdough starter is literally flour and water. And you know what they used for glue back in the day? Flour and water. So it's like basically cleaning glue off of like your Tupperwares and your glasswares. So I have to like soak my dishes in a mixture of like water, dish soap, and vinegar for a few hours and then clean it off. And here's the thing, my kitchen is pretty small. So I don't have a lot of room to work with. I told myself one day, God forbid, one day, the economy lets me buy a house. I really want a big kitchen with an island with a double oven. That's what I want. That is what I want. That is like my dream kitchen with a really deep sink. With a really deep sink. Never happening. Hey, I wouldn't say never happening. Dreams may come true if I work hard enough. Either that or I buy a house in the middle of nowhere, which actually doesn't sound like a bad idea. Something peaceful about living in the middle of nowhere. I have like family members that live in like the middle of the forest. And they tell me all the time, they're like, Sai, it's so peaceful out here. It's so peaceful. Yes, it is wonderfully peaceful. I would like that. The long drive to locals. I mean, there's gonna be a day where I stop going to locals and just settle down, you know? Locals at home. There's locals online, like I think every TCG game has some sort of Discord server out there where people can just do hand cam games. Wants to be over with like Martha's tour. Are you willing to live the courage of cowardly dog IRL? Maybe not there. I would like, if I were to live in the middle of nowhere, it would probably be in a foresty area, where it isn't like hot. Are you getting baked? It actually hasn't been that bad in Atlantis. It's definitely been warmer, but it hasn't been like astronomically hot. It's been fine. It's been manageable. It's been manageable. I'm not like sweating dying in there. Like I've actually been taking a lot more WALK, can't say that word. Or else Nori will freak out. I've been taking him on longer WALKs and just like sitting outside. Just because the weather has been nice. I've been also doing more gardening. I think I talked about that yesterday. This morning. I need to get my zucchini plant, like, in control. I don't know. I bought one zucchini plant, and I think it spawned, like, another. In the span of 2 weeks, it grew so much, and I checked, and, like, the roots split, and it's growing another plant. And I'm sitting here like, is this normal? Is this normal? So I need to go and... I need to probably go outside after stream and go fix it up because it's like going everywhere now. I'm slowly getting baked alive. No! Yeah, it's been getting a little warm. I think it's gonna definitely... The temperature is gonna be amping up pretty soon. Sorry, I'm playing with my... I'm like fidgeting with, what is this? I don't know if you guys can hear it. What are these called? Measuring tapes? These like loose measuring tapes? Have you ever played Pokemon fan games? I've played Lazarus. We're gonna actually be playing that tomorrow. It's warm where I'm at as well, yeah. If you're in the northern hemisphere, depending on what zone you're in, it's definitely getting warmer. But I will say, when it gets warmer, I tend to stay inside more, and I don't touch as much grass. I don't touch as much grass. Yeah, it's actually not too bad. Not too bad. I will say I prefer being like it being like hot outside than it being humid. You know what I mean? I think the combo of like heat and humid is definitely worse than just like a dry heat, if that makes sense. Like hella rainy. Is it? It's like rainy season in certain places. Yeah, it's getting warmer, she says. It snowed last week here in Canada. Yeah, my dad who lives in Canada, I was talking to him yesterday and I was just like, so how is the weather over there? He's like, yeah, it's like starting to get warm, but we still have snow every now and then. And I'm just like, oh, wonderful. Great. Awesome. Phoenix, Arizona might as well be the same thing as hell on earth. I've never been to Phoenix, but I have friends that live in Phoenix. And like during the summer, in our like chats, they'll be like, look how hot it is outside. Just casually 115 degrees. No big deal. Just a normal day in Arizona. I don't know, low-key, Arizona kind of scares me. I am like scared of scorpions. I'm scared of like all the desert animals. I don't want anything to do with it. No, thank you. I'm Canadian, but I'm in the UK for vacation. It's getting hotter tomorrow, mostly next week. Ooh, the UK. AZ mentioned woohoo. I'm in Ohio so far. We've been getting lately these clouds and heat. Oh, I just flew back to Phoenix. My mom went with her due to unforeseen circumstances. I see. I've never been to Arizona. I've heard great things though, like the prices of like homes there are not too bad. I don't know. Do you know that Oshi YouTuber who explains animals? Apparently Western Australia has red sunlight because of the rust in the air. You know, I feel like Australia, my brain's like, Australia is not real. Everything that happens in Australia scares the fuck out of me. Like, I watched a video yesterday about how they found like this really big, like 5-foot spider in the trees. And I'm like, spiders get that big? I don't like spiders at all. So like I watched the video and I immediately like shrieked because I wasn't expecting that. But whatever is going on in Australia can stay over there. All right, all the spiders, all of those really scary bugs can stay over there. Big boy spider. My province in Canada, we had funnel cloud warning. That's crazy. Canada just has weird weather. It's funny because my dad, when I visited him last summer in Canada, he was like apologizing to me. He was just like, Sai, I'm so sorry. When you get here, it's gonna be kind of hot. I was like, oh, okay. I went to go check the weather. It was a high of 75. But apparently that's hot where he lives. 75 degrees is considered warm. I'm like, Father, I don't think you understand. 75 degrees here in Atlantis is considered good weather. It's really nice weather. Was hail for 10 minutes? Oh my gosh, hail is actually kind of scary. I have been in hail where the hail balls are like the size of golf balls, and those are scary. Very, very scary. People can get seriously hurt from those. Like really, really hurt. The warmest I know has gotten 40 degrees Celsius. What is that in American units? Freedom units. 104 degrees. That is really hot, actually. I would love if it was 75 here. My neck in Florida has a heat index of mid-90s right now. Oh my gosh, in May? Ooh, that's hot. And Florida is like, it's not even just hot, it's humid. It's like actually really humid. Really humid. Give me a Pokemon reactor? Brother, I've been a Pokemon reactor. 73%? That's really high! That's really high! What? That's really high. Honestly, I remember Ontario was 40 degrees and I was working outside the whole day. I've always wanted to visit Ontario. Ontario. I wanted to visit Toronto. I've been to Vancouver once, but it was when I was really young, so I actually don't remember. Oh, excuse you. Oh, I didn't have caffeine today. But I've never been to Ontario. I've never been to Toronto. I would love to visit those cities. I actually really like Canada. I miss Tim Hortons a lot. Tim Hortons is great. I know I can get it somewhere in the States, but I don't know. I don't think it'll hit as hard as it does in Canada. Meanwhile, us here in the Philippines is going through, excuse me, is it rainy season now? Because I know you guys have dry season and then rainy season. Canada pog. Canada is very pog. I do like Canada. Watching a funny Nuzlocke of someone losing their teeth to Sabrina's Alakazam. Can't be as bad as Whitney's Bill Tank. I really hope I get the opportunity to travel more like, next year though. Because I'm traveling this year, but it's like not super like far, if that makes sense. Yeah, Philippine weather's deadly. When I went a few years back, oh my god, it's been 4 years since I've been to the Philippines. But, oh my god, it was so bad. It was so fucking bad. There was one particular day I remember. I went to, oh, I don't even remember the name of the city, but I remember it was like the hottest day of the year. And not only was it like maybe 75 to 80 degree, like, or 75 to 80% humidity, it was also 110 outside. So not only was I sitting in just like really steamy, disgusting weather, I was also getting like the sun just burning my skin. I've never, ever felt a heat like that in my life. And it was horrible. Yeah, 94 to 97 is pretty hot. Are the Spurs winning tonight? I hope so. I went crazy from the lack of electronics. I think I told you guys a story of how I set my Nintendo Wii on fire in the Philippines, right? Okay, I'm gonna retell the story because I think it's really funny. Okay, so when I was 8 years old, I took a summer vacation in the Philippines, all right? And at the time, I really wanted to bring my Nintendo Wii. My Nintendo Wii was my favorite console. I played a ton of the Disney Princess game, Sonic Rider Zero Gravity, Wii Sports, you name it, I played it. All right. Animal Crossing, like it was a lot. So, my mom had decided to pack with a Nintendo Wii. Now, when you travel, I think this has been less of a problem in recent years, but definitely not back then, where there's just different voltages in different countries. So you can't just plug in basically an American plug into a foreign outlet without what is called a converter, okay? So a converter basically makes it so you can plug in something into a different voltage socket. And I usually always carry one with me whenever I travel internationally. I know a lot of you, or not a lot, sorry. I know a lot of countries nowadays, they are kind of, oh yeah, we have like similar voltages, and plugs are now made with like to be able to withstand different voltages and to be plugged into basically any type of socket without freaking out. So my mother, we just got there and I was like, all right, Mom, can we set up the Nintendo Wii? And my mom was like, oh, Sai, we have to go buy a converter for the outlet. Can you give me 1 hour to go to the store and buy the converter? So, me being a very impatient 8-year-old, my mom left. And me not having any understanding. I have no understanding of what any of this means. In my 8-year-old brain, I said, well, this plug looks like it goes into the socket, so why don't I just plug it into the socket? And lo and behold, I did. Wasn't turning on. Okay, I kept plugging it and unplugging it, and I kept like clicking the power button. and you see smoke coming out of the Wii. And my uncle, who also traveled at the same time because all of us traveled at the same time to go visit my family, was there. And he was like, oh my God. You see like a spark or something and it caught on fire. It was a great time. My mom came back with the converter. She was, of course, really pissed. I definitely got yelled at and maybe got a spanking, which honestly, I probably deserved because I didn't listen. But my mom was like, I am never getting you a Nintendo Wii again. I was crying. I was like, I really wanted to play my games. And I ended up getting another Nintendo Wii the Christmas after. So, I learned my lesson. I now travel with those outlet converters, even though some countries I don't need them anymore. But, yeah. Last time I went to the Philippines, I was actually told I didn't need it. I was like, oh, they were like, oh, you don't need it anymore. It's, everything works now. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna still use it. I'm really fucking scared. I'm so fucking scared right now. Pepper Cat, thank you for the follow. Thank you for the hydrogen. Yeah, it's, I definitely learned my lesson with that. And, now I no longer travel without a converter. At least internationally, I don't travel without a converter. To quote Knuckles, oh no. But yeah, that was the time I set my Nintendo Wii on fire. It was a very childlike thing for me to do. I mean, an 8-year-old who really loves her Nintendo Wii, can you blame her? Yeah, everything's kind of okay now, so I'll standardize. Yep. Well, I'm still scared. I'm still very traumatized. Oh, man. Rest in peace, that Nintendo Wii. That Nintendo Wii did not deserve what it got, for sure. Did not deserve it. Alrighty. I think I yapped enough, haven't I? I think I yapped enough. I also did that. Fortunately, it was just a charger from my DS, and miraculously, the DS was okay. Oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. You could have fried the inside of your Nintendo DS. Did you have Pokemon Battle Revolution? I did. I absolutely did. We're gonna play Gale of Darkness at some point, but I really want... I don't know if the Nintendo Switch will ever port any of, like, old Wii games, but please bring back Pokemon Battle Revolution. I'm begging you. Please. I love that game so much. That and Poke Park. Has anybody played? It's called Poke Park, right? I'm not crazy. Poke Park. Poke Park Wii. Yes. Poke Park Wii, and then there's Poke Park 2 for the Wii. Great games. Awesome games. I fucking love Poke Park. There's someone on eBay selling a triple lot of Poke Park 2, and Pokemon Battle Revolution for $42. But it's a $20 delivery fee. I don't even have a Nintendo Wii anymore. I think I sold my Nintendo Wii in high school. How much would it be if I were to buy a Nintendo Wii? It would be really cool if we played Nintendo Wii games. I don't know, maybe I can find one on like OfferUp or something. I can buy one at GameStop for $120. It would be fun to play Wii games. It would actually be really fun to play Wii games. I will consider. I will consider. You have a spare Wii? You just have an extra Wii? I can get a Nintendo Wii renewed on Amazon for $128. And it would be here tomorrow. You can probably get one at your local thrift store. Probably better to buy a Wii U. I've never owned a Wii U. I have never owned a Wii U in my entire life. I've always wanted one, but then everyone told me not to get it because it was ass. So I never got the Wii U. Gave me hers a few years ago. They made Captain Santa selling it. I could not ask you to give me your spare Nintendo Wii, Sunfire. Poke Park is a great game. It would be cool if we did a game. Okay. And that's why the Wii U failed. Well, okay, I never understood what was wrong with the Wii U. I was just told it was not a good console. I never actually, like, looked into why it failed as a console. It's best to make your own opinion on a system. True that. True that. I feel so old listening to you talk about a Wii at 8. I was 21 when it came out. Do you guys remember back then when people would use their Wii remotes and not have the strap on, and they were gonna play like Wii Sports, and then they would break the TV? Well, you play Wii games but can't play GameCube games. I never owned a GameCube. My first console ever was a Nintendo DS Lite. I know, I'm young. Has good games. It's an underwhelming console. I know you could play, what was it? I remember one of my friends was telling me, was it Call of Duty? Like there was Call of Duty on the Wii U, and I was like, what? That's crazy. Not that. No, like the strap, like the wrist strap. The wrist strap. My first console was an Atari. Oh, that's kind of sick. I still have my Wii. I need new Wii remotes because my old ones had batteries leak and erode. Oh my god. Tales of Symphonia. I always wanted to get into the Tales of games. Strapless Wii remote is dangerous. Always strap up. PSA. Yes, always strap up. Strapless Wii remote is... I'm reading it. My bad. Renato, thank you for the follow. There was a Call of Duty game for the Wii. Oh, that's like... I thought it was funny because my friend was telling me he was really into playing Call of Duty on the Wii U. And I'm like, they had it on the Wii U? You know, she's got that strap on her. A family member put a Wii remote through their TV within hours of their first use. Oh my god! That is so funny. That is hilarious. The Tales of series is fun. I really want to play more RPGs on stream. We never finished Fire Emblem. We should revisit Fire Emblem. I really love that game. Oh, that game series. It's so good. So good. I wonder if there's a way for me to revisit my Fire Emblem Heroes account. I still have it. Like, I actually still have my Fire Emblem Heroes account on my phone. But it's super outdated. It's so outdated. That was one of my favorite gacha games in high school, was Fire Emblem Heroes. I used to, like, in between classes, just bust it out, play some ranked. It was a great time. I actually made a lot of friends playing that game because in high school, no, I don't know, I guess Fire Emblem wasn't that popular. So I had a few people stop by. They're like, wait, are you a Fire Emblem? Are you a Fire Emblem fan? And I'm like, I am. And I made a few friends that way. Which Fire Emblem? My favorite Fire Emblem is Awakening. I like Conquest a lot. I'm giving Three Houses another shot. But I don't think there will be a Fire Emblem game that will give me the same high that Fire Emblem Awakening has given. There is no other Fire Emblem game. Like I love Conquest, did not give me the same high. But Fire Emblem Awakening, so good. Wasn't Awakening the last game that they were gonna try before they were just like gonna end the franchise? If it didn't do well. That's why I reserved my Wii for GameCube games. I've never actually played GameCube games. I used to play like the GameCube at my cousin's house if they let me play it. Because my cousins, they were super gatekeepy with me as a child. Because me and my cousins, we have a pretty big age gap, like 10 years apart. So when I was 5 years old, they were 15, you know? So when I was a kid and I would go over to the house and I would watch them play games and I would ask if I could play, they would always tell me no. I think I actually made a Pokemon shirt. So the only reason why I got into Pokemon and Pokemon cards was because of my cousins. And you want to know why? It's because I was really like, oh, what's that? That's a really cute card, or that's a really cute game, as like a 5-6-year-old. And my cousins were like, yeah, you're too fucking young for this shit. Get out of here. And out of spite, I begged my mom. I was asking my mom, I'm like, please buy me Pokemon cards and this console, this Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. So my mom got it for me my next birthday coming around. And that's how I got into Pokemon. And it's really funny because out of everybody in my family now, I am the only one still into Pokemon. All my cousins who were into it before then and gate kept it from me don't care anymore. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, I love Pokemon. I play every single game when it comes out. I play the card game. I collect the cards. It's so funny. Tamagotchi is what got me into playing Pokemon on gameplay. Ooh. Size Pokemon Secret Origin Story. My first console was a Game Boy Advance. I think I shared it with my sister. I remember all the girls that had Game Boys back then would bring it to school. They're like, yeah, this is my game, girl. This is my game, girl. And I'm like, isn't that a Game Boy? Feels like your job, Pokemon. Now I stream on Twitch and YouTube me playing Pokemon. I go out and travel because of Pokemon. So I tend to do, oh, here's the thing. I joke around people that I run off of caffeine and spite, because really a lot of my actions in life, which I know is not healthy, I know it's not good, a lot of the decisions I make are out of spite. When somebody tells me I can't do something, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go and prove them wrong. I'm gonna go and prove them wrong because I don't want them thinking like that of me. So a lot of the things I do is out of spite. Like, for example, I think I told you this story where I wanted to start cooking and baking more because my grandmother told me that I shouldn't focus on that and I should focus in school. So you know what I did? I did well in school and I did baking, cooking. I do a lot of things at this point. You can't possibly become a Pokemon TCG World Champion. No, not when Azul Griego Garcia exists. I love doing stuff out of spite, true. Pokemon Go is fun. I actually booted it up the other day because Dino Community Day? I didn't get anything though. Also, by the way, I'm still kind of sniffly, guys, so if you hear me go throughout the stream, I'm sorry. Diamond and Pearl were the first Pokemon games I bought myself. Same. Well, I didn't buy them myself. My mom gifted it to me. Good game. The antivirus is beating me up. I don't have the antivirus. What are you talking about? I got into Pokemon while on family vacation. My dad at Toys R Us offered my brother and I a Game Boy game. My brother chose Pokemon Red. Man, I miss the days of... I miss the video game section of Toys R Us. I just miss Toys R Us. Now, it's like you see Toys R Us in like little department stores, like a little section of the department stores, but I don't think you can find very many like Toys R Us stores anymore. Everybody's so used to just going and buying toys at like Walmart or like Amazon. I remember going into Toys R Us to do those Pokemon events where you go in and they give you a legendary Pokemon if you bring your game. That's just doing record. Nothing to apologize for. Yeah, I think my body's like finally adjusting after all the stress, after everything. Oh, those were the days, man. Now I like see, what is it? They call it nostalgia core now. There's like people posting videos of like what the holidays used to feel like. And it's just like a classroom, everybody having hot chocolate and cookies, watching the Polar Express, and it's like Toys R Us and all of that. I'm like, man, the early 2000s was such a gem, was such a good time. And I think I look back and I'm like, I shouldn't have taken that time for granted, and I shouldn't take the time I have now for granted. Because God forbid, in about 10, 15 years, if I'm still here, hopefully, oh my God, I intend to live a long, healthy life. I'm gonna look back and I'll be like, man, back in 2026 when I was a wee little old lad, I remember when I used to stream on twitchtv.com or twitch.tv/Poseidon Mythos. That's gonna be me in 10, 15 years. I'm gonna be like reminiscing on the times. These are the good old days. You have to remember, chat, this is the good old days right now. If you live in the right country, you're still not salty about the Shiny Marina Pride on event. Yeah, certain countries get cooler events than us, I will tell you that. Best part of making videos of when you can see your boob sag with age. Real. Anyways. Should we get to reacting? I think we should. You know what? Should we? I don't think I've done this hairstyle in a while. Have I done this hairstyle in a bit? I love this one. It's like a little. Oh, sorry. Part of me wonders if I should go make myself some gamer subs right now. I've been yawning a little more than I've been wanting to. Look at my child. This is my Oshi. She will be now your Oshi. Legacy Oshis are weird concept. Then again, some YouTubers I watch introduce to their viewers' kids. Oh my god. That reminds me of this one video I watched. It was like Tyler won. And I guess back in the day, he trolled this kid's dad on, or he was like, maybe not troll, but was being toxic to this kid's dad. And now he's playing in the same lobby as that kid. And the kid's like, yeah, I remember what you said to my dad. Alright, let me move the multi-stream chat back here. Alright. Move it back there. Whoa! What the heck? Oh, I see what happened. Oh, nope. Yeah, now I'm passing along the yawns now. Hard scalpers, fuck those guys. Those guys can kiss my ass. I have no sympathy for anybody who's a scalper. No sympathy. Drink more water to avoid yawning. Does that actually work? I do have water. It's very good water. I feel like a freak because I cannot. I tend to have a hard time drinking water that isn't ice cold. I need ice in my water at like all times. Let's see. Why did my browser close? Less caffeine, more water. I do need to watch what I drink or how much caffeine I consume. I do need to watch that. I don't want to be like that person that drinks so much caffeine and I start having heart issues. That actually scares me. That actually really scares me. Okay. Alright. Let me just turn off music. Musica. Alright. We are so backed with more Shy and React. Today we're going to be reacting to ranking every Pokemon gym by how deadly it is. I believe we did watch a video in the past by, I think it was This Is Chris, please correct me if I'm wrong, editor, about if like certain gyms were OSHA compliant, and someone was like, Sai. Oh, see, the video's literally right here. Are Pokemon gyms OSHA compliant? But someone was like, Sai, Mikey did a video similar to that, so we're gonna be watching, ranking every Pokemon gym by how deadly it is. This was from 5 years ago, so I'm assuming this is everything up to Gen 8. So we're probably not gonna get Gen 9, which I think those gyms are a little more Well, definitely a little more OSHA compliant, I'd say.
Always wear.
Oh, wait, hold up. Let me start the video over.
Greetings, Boogie fans! Michael here, and I love safety. I always wear my seatbelt.
Safety first.
I will never ride a motorcycle. I wear a mask when I'm around other people. And I've sold 2 different shirts that remind you that in all you do.
Wait, these shirts are so cute.
Do it for safety purposes. Also, I brought these shirts back for a couple days, so if you want to pick one up, the link's in the description below. Recently, I stumbled upon another video creator with a passion for safety, Brian David Gilbert. His video on Polygon about all of the OSHA violations that the Smash Bros.
I think with Smash Bros stadiums, I think whenever they were crafting or building those, being OSHA compliant was definitely not a priority.
Stages have committed was a masterpiece. As are all of his videos. Brian, please be my friend. And while watching this, I realized that there's a lot of places in Pokemon that are also very unsafe. And I'm not really talking about routes, since most of those are just the wilderness, which is inherently dangerous.
Real.
I'm talking about man-made Pokemon locations, specifically Pokemon gyms.
Yeah.
Today, I will be ranking.
Me looking back at the freaking Nuzlocke roulette I did a while back, or by a while back, I mean the other day, and Bryson's gym is absolutely not OSHA compliant.
Every single main series Pokemon gym by how dangerous its gym puzzle is. I will be doing this on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being not dangerous, it's just a room, and 10 being participating would kill you. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel, tap that bell for notifications, you know the thing. And let's dive into ranking every single Pokemon gym by how unsafe it is. There are a few clarifications I have to make up front before we can dive into the specific rankings.
Oh my god.
The first is that I will be looking at these gyms through the lens of real-world physics. Obviously,
okay, we're being realistic. Got it.
progressing through a gym puzzle in the games does not kill the player. Like, could you imagine if it did? But for this video, all features of the gym puzzles will be treated as if they existed in the real world and have the real world mechanics. So big tall ledges with no guardrails don't have invisible walls. You can fall off of them. Fire is not just a solid object, it can burn you, and more stuff like that.
Oh my god, these gyms are cooked!
However, and this is the second clarification, the real-world physics don't extend to the Pokemon themselves. Pokemon are inherently dangerous. They're wild animals that can shoot laser beams. Anywhere a Pokemon battle occurs would then be dangerous, which would make every single gym dangerous. That would mean this video would be wildly uninteresting though, so we're not gonna worry about any dangers caused by the existence of Pokemon. We're looking at just the structures and nothing else. But now that I've cleared those things up, we can move on into the rankings, and we'll start at the bottom, the gyms that are pretty safe. These are the gyms that...
Okay, so we have Pewter Gym. Okay, a lot of Gen 1s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these Gen 1 gyms are good. Half of the Gen 2. Yeah, it looks like it's just progressively getting more dangerous.
I gave the rank of...
Actually, you know, Gen 8, all the gyms being in, like, actual stadiums actually kind of help.
1. The gyms that are no more dangerous than a room in your house. You would have to make a concerted effort to hurt yourself. I'm not gonna go over all of them since, as you can see, there are quite a lot, but some notable examples are Brock's Pewter Gym, which is just a room with some rocks.
With just a bunch
Norman's
of rocks.
Petalburg Gym, which is just several empty rooms. And Roxy's Verbank Gym, which is just a basement with a stage. Wait, actually, the basement only has 1 entrance and exit.
Yeah, you know, aren't most buildings supposed to have, like, 2 to 3 exits just in case of a fire?
And it doesn't appear to be clearly labeled with a glowing exit sign. So that's God, that's gotta be a fire code violation. Oh my
Oh,
gosh, I have to
absolutely
increase
it
its
is.
score. That's what?
I mean, I'm not an expert. I can probably tell you that is true.
Wildly unsafe. No. Brian David Gilbert already went through and did real world safety regulations and made it sound wildly unfun. So I'm not gonna worry about any OSHA regulations or fire codes or anything like that. I'm just looking at the inherent danger of the structures, not whether the building is up to code. After all, every single gym only has one entrance and exit. Before I move on to the 2 ranked gyms though, there were a few 1 ranked ones that I wanted to talk about. Those that have technology that doesn't exist in the real world. Specifically warp panels and spinny arrow tiles.
Oh, those I hate those ones. I hate those goddamn spinny tile looking things.
To me, these technologies seem like they could be dangerous, since a spinny arrow tile could send you careening into a wall, or if a warp panel malfunctions, it could teleport part of you. And only part of you.
How does that even work? I think that's a whole separate video. I don't understand, but...
However, I've decided that these technologies cannot be considered dangerous because the technologies are widespread in the Pokemon world. Warp panels are all over Silphco, the headquarters of a famous and reputable organization. Arrow tiles are in the Rocket Hideout, the headquarters of an infamous and—
How do you, as a Team Rocket employee, navigate into getting into work? Do you have to go through these tiles? Do you have to just be like, yeah, give me like 2 minutes to clock in. I'm just gonna keep spinning around the room until I get into the staff-only room.
disreputable organization. The technology seems to be as consistent and reliable as a well-built elevator, so I can't label these gyms as more dangerous just because they include a technology that's unfamiliar to me. A technology that seems to function perfectly. Next are the gyms I gave a score of 2. These are places that are
not as dangerous. I can already tell. I think Hearth Home Gym, I think it's the light situation now.
More dangerous than a regular room, but you're extremely unlikely to get hurt if you use common sense. Some of these, like the Orberg and Black 2 White 2 Nimbasa gyms, have some ledges without guardrails you could fall off, but you wouldn't be severely injured if you did. Others, like the 4 Tree or Diamond Pearl Veilstone gyms, have moving walls or parts that might pinch you if you're not careful, but wouldn't do serious harm. Others, like the Fuchsia, Dewford, and Platinum Hearthome gyms, require you to navigate through mazes that you can't properly see. So you could bump into or trip over something, but that shouldn't be a problem if you just don't run. And then there's the Cerulean Gym, which is just an indoor pool or a natatorium. Pools are by nature more dangerous than regular rooms, especially for those who cannot swim, but they're real-world things that they let kids enter. The walkways in the Cerulean Gym might be more dangerous, especially if they get slippery.
Oh yeah,
but
with the water.
There appear to be tons of lifeguard-trained swimmers around. Although, my ranking of 2 for the Cerulean Gym only applies to generations 3 and earlier.
Oh.
Because starting in Generation 4,
wait, what does it look like
they
again?
let you run by the pool. Everyone.
Oh, they let you hold down the B button by the pool.
Who has ever been to a pool knows that there's no freaking running, okay? So generations 4 and 7 Cerulean Gym, these lax safety procedures are gonna get someone hurt. You're bumped up to a rank of 3. Speaking of rank 3, here are all the gyms that I designated with that number. These are places with a moderate chance of some mild harm like scrapes or bruises, and a small chance of something more serious. The Gen 7 Cinnabar Gym uses indoor pyrotechnics, including miniature rockets.
I did not really play this game very much, okay?
Firing off indoors. Blaine seems to have a good handle on them, but if they were to malfunction, which fireworks can do,
oh my god, I remember that video.
Someone could get really hurt. The Acritique Gym features walking on a dark, narrow pathway you're almost certain to fall off of. Doing so seems to teleport you harmlessly back to the beginning, but unlike warp panels, you have vertical momentum when you teleport here, meaning when you arrive at the entrance, you're gonna fall down a little bit. It seems mostly safe, but you might roll an ankle.
How does that technology work?
The Heart Gold Soul Silver Cianwood Gym features cliffs you could fall down and exposed machinery, and the Platinum Veilstone Gym has punching bags wildly swinging around and knocking over tires. The Black 2 White 2 gyms for Driftvale and Humalau feature riding on objects that give you a lot of forward momentum, but bring you to a sudden stop, which would lead to some trips and falls.
Oh yeah, it would make you
The
kinda fall
Coumarine Gym is a
backwards,
tall exposed tower, but there are guardrails and nets, so it's not super dangerous. Finally, the Holbury Gym has exposed water you could fall into since there's no guardrails,
that is right.
which could
It's Nessa's gym that's looking like this. Yes, I do remember.
cause a problem if the pipes make any weird currents or you can't swim well. Next are the gyms ranked at 4. These are the ones where you are likely to get some scrapes and bruises and have a small chance of more moderate harm,
this one
like a
isn't
broken
as
bone.
bad. It's a
The
smaller
Pastoria
section.
Gym has rapid changes in water level. While the buttons to activate the water level changes are always above the level you're on, what if someone else steps on it? The Diamond and Pearl Heart Home Gym requires you to ride open top elevators up tall, no guardrail edges. While you're unlikely to fall, doing so would really hurt. The Anastar Gym has narrow
What the-
pathways you could easily fall off.
How does this goddamn work? How does this work? Don Thunder, thank you so much for the 19 months. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Off of, but doing so would make you fall onto some psychic sphere, which I really have no idea whether that would hurt you or not. But at the very least, if you fell from one psychic walkway onto another, that would probably hurt. The Stow-on-Side Gym's insane teacup ride would almost certainly give you whiplash. Not only from hitting the walls, but from being rapidly punched around in different directions with random speed.
For sure.
Finally, the Sirchester Gym requires you to navigate with limited visibility in a minefield of pits. You'd certainly be hurt falling into one of those.
Oh, 100%.
We're now at the midpoint, those ranked 5. Participating in these means you either are likely to get some broken bones while participating, or you have a small chance of something more serious. Both the Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Azalea
yes, it's these goddamn fucking... I don't like that bug
Gym and the Oris Moss Deep Gym
What happens if
have
you
you
fall?
riding over a pit with no visible bottom. While the technology of your transport appears reliable, there's no way to know what would happen if you fell
what
into
if
the
it
darkness below.
malfunctioned?
It could be a 2-feet drop onto a floor that's painted black, or it could be a pit leading to Tartarus and you spend your eternity in hell. So 5, nice middle ground. The Mahogany Gym is an ice puzzle, and no one likes ice puzzles. But I think we would like them a lot less in real life. You'd have to get a running start and then hop onto the ice. You could, of course, trip and fall, which would hurt, but even if you didn't, what eventually stops you is likely to be a wall or a rock. Any ice puzzle would be virtually guaranteed to hurt you at least pretty bad, but it could be potentially worse. Wear a helmet if you're not like a super experienced skater, and even then, I probably still would. The Castelia Gym in Black 2 and White 2 launches you through thin spiderweb chutes with no apparent slowing of momentum at the end.
Yeah, are the bottoms of those padded?
Meaning in the real world, you'd smack into the floor every time. The Sillage and Shallore gyms are both real-life recreational facilities, but have terrible safety precautions. The Sillage Gym is a rock climbing course with no harnesses, and the Shallore Gym is a skate park with no helmets. The gym trainers wear helmets, but they don't require you to. Both of these gyms, if you make one wrong mistake, you're gonna get hurt pretty bad. Next, we have the gyms ranked at level 6. These are gyms with about
Very dangerous gyms.
the same injury chance as level 5, but these ones are the first ones to have a real chance of death. The previous gyms I've mentioned might have been able to kill you, like, yeah, you could drown in the Cerulean Gym for sure, but either the chances were so small they were negligible, or I wasn't totally sure they could actually kill you. These gyms, I know they could kill you. It's a small chance, but it does still exist. The Vermilion Gym in Generations 1 and 2 was ranked...
This one... is the lightning one, right?
The one because the gate was either not there or just a regular metal gate.
Is it?
In generations 3
remember.
onward, the gate is a
Oh yeah, it is.
pair of uncovered electrical beams that would do serious damage if they shocked you. You are not required to get close to them to complete the puzzle though, unlike other unprotected electrical bolts. The Sutopolis gym makes you walk across literal thin ice, and if you fail, you fall down to the basement. It's unclear how far the fall is, but the basement has 3 levels, the latest one being the highest, meaning falling in the first segment would be the worst fall. You would likely break some bones from falling that far, and maybe die if you hit your head or neck wrong. Finally for the 6s is the Nimbasa gym from Black and White. It's a bunch of roller coasters, but there's no visible seat belt inside the coaster cars. That means you're gonna be jostled around like the beans inside some maracas. And do you think beans inside maracas are having a good time?
No.
I would not be happy if I was a maraca bean. Next are the ones I ranked.
I don't think, being a bean inside of maraca is that bad. All right. I don't think so. Oh, what it is to be a bean inside of a maraca.
7. These have about the same chance of death as the 6s, but the injuries you could receive are more severe, potentially life-threatening. The Snow Point Gym is an ice puzzle, which as I've already stated is dangerous by nature. However, this one not only has slopes, which would make you travel faster, but you're also required to break through giant snowballs with your body. The game makes it seem like hitting these snowballs would be like flying through some freshly fallen light powder.
No.
But no.
No.
Have you ever built a snowman? Do you know how densely packed the snow has to be in order for it to hold its shape like that? Imagine crashing in to a solid mass of snow as tall as you at high speed because you slid down a slope. It'd be like hitting drywall. You're required to injure yourself to make it through this puzzle, which is messed up, Candace, and you're not even spelling your name right. What's wrong with you? I know it's a pun, but no Candace spells their name like that. The Sunny Shore Gym has some exposed electrical beams, like I mentioned before, but it also has a ton of open machinery you could fall into seemingly relatively easily. If you are working near active machinery, don't stick your hands in there. And also, if you have long hair, tie it up. Seriously, I learned that in my mechanical engineering lab. Heard some really unpleasant stories.
Do tell.
The Black and White Castelia Gym seems harmless. It's just several honeycomb-shaped rooms, some of which require you pushing your way through walls of honey to access. It seems relatively mundane, but what if you get stuck in that sticky honey? What if you get stuck with your head not all the way through? Do you really think the clown staff is gonna be able to get you unstuck in time?
No, they don't get paid enough for that.
For you to not suffocate? No, in summary, don't trust clowns and save the damn bees. Finally for the 7s is the Santaloon Gym. I'm putting this gym up higher than a lot of other fall risk gyms because while I'm not sure the fall would kill you, the fall is virtually guaranteed. You're walking on tightropes. Next are the ones ranked 8. These have a high chance to seriously hurt you and a moderate chance to kill you.
I don't remember
the
what
Mauville
these
Gym in
gyms
Gen
are.
3 has
Yeah, this is 100% unsafe. Hi, Daenerys!
exposed electrical bolts that you have to walk right next to.
Oh my gosh.
Meaning getting just slightly too close would give you a shock.
How many gym staff have died from this or gotten injured? I am assuming a lot.
That could very well kill you. Also, these bolts change direction and where they are. If someone else steps on a switch while you're walking in between 2 of the metal poles, you're toast.
You're just fucked.
Literally. The Lava Ridge Gym, both in Gen 3 and Gen 6, is using either hot sand or hot water under enough pressure to launch you up an entire story. If the angle is wrong, you could hit the ceiling, but the material launching you could burn you as well. Combine that with having to drop down an entire story with no padded landing multiple times during the progression, and you've got a gym that would beat the crap out of you by the end. The Canalave Gym is many stories high and has no guardrails on most of the ledges. Additionally, you have to ride fast-moving horizontal platforms that come to
so
immediate
unsafe.
stops. With real-world physics, that would make you keep going, falling on your face. You will get—
What's killing me is that there's a construction worker trainer in the gym. That's what's sending me
injured doing this, and one wrong step could make you fall to your doom. Our penultimate level are the gyms ranked at 9. These are gyms that have a high chance of killing you, but your death is not 100% guaranteed. Most of these gyms, specifically the Violet—
There has to be a category where death is 100% guaranteed, right?
Black and White Drift Veil, Opalucid, and Snowbell gyms require you to walk along very narrow pathways with no guardrails that are really high up. High enough up that falling would 100% kill you.
Being a workers' comp lawyer has to be the most profitable occupation in Pokemon. Yes, those guys are millionaires for sure.
Might not fall, but you probably will due to how narrow everything is. The Black 2 and White 2 Mistralton gym features hurricane force winds that if you get caught in them will send you hurtling into walls or through wooden crates. You might make it through without getting caught, but if you don't, you will be seriously injured and very possibly killed. Finally, for level 9 is the Osiris Gym. It's an ice puzzle, but what makes this one worse than the others are the ramps over tall pits.
Oh yeah,
the pits look
those pits are definitely bottomless.
Bottomless, but the zoomed out image of the gym shows you'll fall at least this far onto what looks like potentially just solid concrete. If you had just a slightly wrong angle on those ice ramps, which is highly likely, you would fall to your death. Finally are the 10s. These are the gyms that are the most egregious of all. The gyms that I believe, if real-world physics were applied, would be guaranteed to kill you if you went through the puzzle. There are only 2 of them. The first is the Blackthorn Gym, which has
my God, it's just lava.
Indoor, open pools of lava? What? Obviously,
what if it's like the Floor is Lava show where it's just water that looks like lava?
Fell into the lava, you would die, and that's a real risk. The Gen 2 version of the gym has no guardrails, and the Gen 4 has more guardrails, but there's still plenty of just open ledges that you could theoretically fall off.
Yes.
However, that's not even the main thing that would kill you. I believe that you would die without even having to fall into the lava because of the trapped heat. You can be in somewhat close proximity to lava without being hurt, being able to get even closer with protective equipment. The heat radiating off the lava is dissipated enough before it gets to you. However, that's when the lava is outside.
But if
the heat is dissipated into the rest of the atmosphere. The lava in the Blackthorn Gym is inside, and where does the heat go?
What if it's just a screen? Not me coping. I'm just like, what if the floor is just a screen, huh?
Too many variables, and I don't know enough to try and do any calculations about this, but I do know that the fact that the lava never cools means that it's being replenished. Its heat stays. So that means it's constantly giving off heat that I don't think a regular building could vent out quickly enough, especially since we don't see any vents. Walking into the Blackthorn Gym would be like walking into a literal oven, and you would be cooked just by standing there. If someone watching this video is an expert in lava and heat transfer and knows how to do some calculations to be 100% sure that it would kill you in there, definitely do those and tell me how it goes. But for the sake of this video, I'm very certain that just being in the Blackthorn Gym, even if you don't fall into the lava, would kill you. The final gym I'll go over, the other 10 ranked gym, is the Black and White Mistralton Gym. This one
this is Skyla's gym. This is just shooting you in a cannon. Yeah, that is 100% dangerous.
You are repeatedly fired out of cannons, and your landing pad is just the metal ground. Progressing through
That
this
is
gym
so
requires
funny.
you to be launched out of cannons many times your body height into the air, then land on hard, unforgiving metal. The first launch will severely injure you, breaking multiple bones and very possibly killing you. If it doesn't kill you though, it doesn't matter because you do it again and again and again.
again.
The injuries
And
would
again.
compound and completely destroy your body. And the icing on top, the penultimate cannon before Skyla literally fires you into a wall. And
I forgot about that.
then you fall down onto the ground afterward.
That's
It's
so
like you're a
fucked.
half-cooked piece of spaghetti thrown against the refrigerator. There is no way you could get through all of these cannons without experiencing
absolutely
an
not.
extremely painful death. The moral of this story, if Pokemon gyms open up in the real world, stay the hell away from them.
Agreed.
And also pick up a For Safety Purposes shirt if you want one. Thanks so much for watching, and an extra special thanks to my patrons over on Patreon who are helping support my channel independent of fluctuating YouTube ad rates. You want to help support me in the same way? The link is in the description below. Also, if you want to check out some more of my fun Pokemon content, I recommend these videos here. All right, that's all I have for now. So until next time, big fans. Gotta catch them all.
Oh my god, I forgot how dangerous Skyla's gym is. Let's see what the comments say. I'm surprised the Blackthorn gym hasn't spontaneously combusted. All the pressure held inside would eventually make that place pop like a balloon. Novan trainers be like, "Hi, I'd like to take the gym challenge." League official, "Okay, but fair warning, nobody makes it past the 6th gym." Trainer, "I'm sure I can raise strong enough Pokemon to win." Oh, it's not the gym battle I'd be worried about. Yeah, Death and Skyla's gym is just guaranteed. 100%. 100. Anyways. Next video. Oh my gosh, the amount of comments that I have gotten that was like, Poseidon, stop watching the worst type Pokemon videos. Go watch the best ones, because those ones are pretty cool. And I'm like, have we watched one of the best type Pokemon videos from Wolfie? I can't recall. So we're gonna start with what is the best fairy type Pokemon by Wolfie VTC. If I had to take a guess, I don't know. I think Sylveon would be up there, wouldn't it?
About 10 years. But despite being much newer than every other type, Fairy is probably the best type in the entire game. And knowing this, I want to figure out what the best
I
fairy
need
type
you to tell me why it's the best fairy type.
Pokemon of all time is. Of course, I am strictly talking about
Zacian is also part fairy, I forgot.
competitive Pokemon here, the official competitive format. If your favorite fairy type Pokemon is Dedenne, like that's totally cool and like good for you, but Dedenne's not going to appear on this list. There's
Oh, I say with my shiny Dedenne and freaking Pokemon champions.
also a lot of really good fairy type Pokemon that aren't going to appear on this list because fairy is the best type in the game, and so the good fairy type Pokemon are really good. My initial list of Pokemon that could be considered for best fairy type of all time was like 20 Pokemon. So yeah, there had to be a fair few cuts. In the end, I feel confident that these are the 10 best fairy types, starting with Sylveon. Sylveon is like
Oh, yay! Okay, well, at least I got something
the
right.
quintessential fairy type, right? I mean, it's like the fairy type
It is the fairy type. It is the fairy type.
you think of when you think of fairy type. I really like Sylveon. I think not only is the design good, but more importantly, it's fun to use. Sylveon feels fair in a way that not all Pokemon do. The main reason to use Sylveon has to do with its ability.
Pixelate. Hyper voice.
Turns all normal type moves into fairy type moves and gives them a damage boost. This allows Sylveon to use powerful moves that other fairy type Pokemon aren't able to access. Most notably moves like Hyper Voice, Quick Attack,
So
and Hyper Beam.
fun.
Hyper Voice is just a really strong and consistent normal type moves that hits both targets, so turning it to like maybe the best offensive type in the game and giving it a damage boost is a pretty big deal. And if you want more
It is
burst, you
pretty
can always
silly.
use Hyper Beam, though that doesn't always work out super well. Sylveon hits
But Hyper Beam is so fun.
Pretty hard, and it also gets a damage boost from Pixelate, but its defenses are no slouch too. It's got very respectable bulk, and actually on the special side, it's really tanky. And it has a nice speed stat where it works both on Trick Room teams and Tailwind teams because it's kind of right in the middle, so it can lean into either direction. Sylveon is also one of the only Pokemon in the game that can use a Fairy type priority move because it gets Quick Attack, and Quick Attack when affected by Pixelate becomes a Fairy type move. Sylveon doesn't have a very high attack stat, but you can do some really fun things with the Quick Attack, such as attacking your own partner to activate weakness policy. This was used a little bit during Sword and Shield.
Oh my god, wait, that's kind of funny.
My favorite use of Quick Attack Sylveon though was on maybe the most evil strategy I've ever used, which is Trick Eject Button. Okay, it probably isn't the most evil strategy, but it's up there. If you are unaware, basically you couldn't force Dynamax Pokemon to switch out, like Roar or Whirlwind or like Red Card. None of that would work. Like there was really no way to get rid of a Pokemon that had Dynamax. You kind of just had to get through the 3 turns. But if you use the move Trick, which switches the item of the user and the target, used by a prankster Pokemon, you could give the item Eject Button to whatever you targeted. And Eject Button was the only way in the game to get rid of a Dynamax Pokemon and force it to switch out. And so what we did was we had a priority Trick user with the ability Prankster give the item Eject Button to a Dynamax Pokemon, and then before they could attack, use Quick Attack Sylveon to force them out and basically nullify their Dynamax. It is one of the hardest I've ever laughed pulling it off, and I have very fond memories.
Look how happy he is. Look at how happy he is ruining someone's day.
That strategy.
In my defense, I would be acting like this too.
Sylveon is a very balanced fairy type, but our number 9 slot I would say is not so well balanced, but that doesn't mean that it's not strong. I'm talking about Mawile. Well, specifically I'm talking about Mega Mawile.
Mega Mawile is so sick. Such a good Pokemon.
I think this is one of the coolest Mega Evolutions because Mawile as a Pokemon is just abysmal, like really, really bad. Like there's really no reason to ever use it, and by not only giving it the fairy typing, but also giving it a Mega Evolution, it basically revitalized a classic Pokemon that otherwise would never see any play. Mega Mawile is so much stronger than regular Mawile because not only does it get the base stat increase by being a Mega Evolution, its ability also changes to Huge Power. Huge Power doubles the attack stat of the Pokemon, and doubling a stat in competitive Pokemon is a really big deal. It also helps that Fairy is the best offensive type in the game, and that, in my opinion, Fairy and Steel is the single best type combination out of all of the different type combinations. Fairy and Steel is just ridiculous. They complement each other so well.
That has it, right? Or no, there has to be other Fairy Steel Pokemon.
Both defensively and offensively. I guess that's kind of what happens when you take the best defensive type in the game and pair it with the best offensive type.
Tinkaton, yes, Tinkaton. How could I forget? That's my second favorite Pokemon.
Shoring up Mawile's resistances and Huge Power doubling its attack.
It sucks because Tinkaton's not that great in competitive.
Really hard to get rid of, and then it hits super hard, especially because Fairy is a really difficult type to resist. Mega Mawile is pretty slow. That would be its main weakness, and so it was mostly used as a Trick Room attacker, turning that weakness into a strength. If you did get caught outside of Trick Room, you could still use the move Sucker Punch, which is relatively powerful and has an increased stage of priority, allowing Mega Mawile to move before other Pokemon. One thing that's really neat about Mega Mawile is that it's one of the few Mega Evolutions that has like some value to keep it in its non-Mega form, because Mawile's ability is Intimidate. Intimidate will lower the attack stats of both opposing Pokemon every time it switches in, and so the advantage of keeping Mawile in its regular form is that you can potentially use Intimidate multiple times per battle. One thing you could do is lead with Mawile, see if it was a good spot to Mega Evolve, and then if it was bad, switch it out, and the next time you brought it in, have Intimidate, and then you can Mega Evolve. Being able to cycle Intimidate and use it multiple times in a battle is very good. This is your Incineroar comment of the video. I know that there's somebody in the comments.
Use Fake Out and Helping Hands. Oh, I see. Okay, so it's not an attacking Pokemon, it's a support Pokemon.
It's keeping track of how long it takes for Incineroar to appear in each video, and I think it's funny, so here you go. I've been doing it earlier than I otherwise would.
Shout out to you,
Mawile is not as good an Intimidate cycler as Incineroar for a number of reasons, in large part because it's just so bad outside of its Mega Evolution. There were a couple funny matches back in the day where people would run 2 Mega Evolutions on a team, and occasionally they would bring both to the battle, and so maybe they would have like, Kangaskhan for Fake Out, and then Mawile with the intention of Mega Evolving, but then they would like end up needing to Mega Evolve Kangaskhan and get stuck with baby Mawile, and it was just so sad. Anyway, Mawile never won the World Championships, but it was one of the best Pokemon in 2014 in the first year of X and Y, and it did win 2 international championships, so I think it definitely deserves a spot in this list, as I wouldn't say it was one of the best Mega Evolutions of all time, but it was a really good one, and it had a niche, especially early on when there were fewer Mega Evolutions available, as one of the only Mega Evolutions that could really stand up to Mega Kangaskhan. Our number 8 slot is a Pokemon that wasn't around during Mega Evolution, Grimmsnarl. Grimmsnarl's really cool.
Grimmsnarl, my beloved. I love this goddamn
I wasn't
thing.
entirely sure where to put it on this list, but in the end I decided that number 8 was pretty fair because it's won an international championship and it got second at the world championships as well. Pokemon that were introduced in Sword and Shield are a little bit funky because they didn't have the opportunity to play most of the events where they would have really been shining because of the pandemic canceling all events. But despite that, Grimmsnarl still did very, very well. Grimmsnarl is a dark and fairy type Pokemon that likes to use its typing primarily defensively. It has the ability Prankster, and so even though it has a sky high attack stat, it actually ends up filling a role as a supporting Pokemon. It uses moves like Reflect and Light Screen to increase the entire team's survivability and can also disrupt your opponent with moves that influence the speeds of the battle like Thunder Wave, or use other disruptive moves like Fake Out, as well as having a couple other nice options as well. Grimmsnarl was really incredible during the final format of Sword and Shield, where we were allowed to use powerful restricted Pokemon, 2 restricted Pokemon on each team. Grimmsnarl was really good because these restricted Pokemon were doubling their HP with Dynamax most of the time, and then you could increase their defenses with Reflect and Light Screen, making them just like basically impossible to KO. But Grimmsnarl was also really annoying to play against because it got this really annoying strategy. We talked about Trick Eject Button earlier, but the thing about Trick Eject Button is that it was considered a bit gimmicky because if the Pokemon that you want to trick just protects and then Grimmsnarl takes an attack, the eject button will activate and yeah, you'll get no value. And so what people did instead, they did use Trick, but they used the item Lagging Tail, which causes the user to always move last within its priority bracket. And so what that meant was that if Grimmsnarl didn't get to trick away the item, then Reflect and Light Screen would move last in its priority bracket, meaning like Reflect and Light Screen have higher priority than other moves, so they still go up before most normal attacks. But if your opponent had a threatening restricted Pokemon or a threatening Dynamax Pokemon, you could use Trick and then cause them to always move last for the rest of the battle. And so it was really annoying. Some players also use Trick with the item Iron Ball, which cuts a Pokemon speed in half. This was valuable because it would immediately take effect, whereas Lagging Tail would only take effect on the following attack. And you could use Iron Ball's other effect, which is that it causes Pokemon that are flying type or floating to touch the ground. And so people would do stuff like Trick Iron Ball Grimmsnarl and Dynamax Groudon, and they would like against Thundurus, for example, who otherwise would be pretty decent into Groudon, they would trick Thundurus, take away its item, cut its speed in half, cause it to touch the ground, and then hit it with like Max Quake, and then yeah, Thundurus would go bye-bye. I think it's a really cool strategy, and so I wanted to talk about it here.
That is so nasty. What the fuck? Please tell me there's nothing like that now in the current VTC meta. Also, pal, thank you for the follow.
And yeah, Grimmsnarl is like also just recently, at the time I'm recording this, got second at the North American International Championships, which I think makes some sense because restricted Pokemon are now back. So it's a really cool support Pokemon that, thanks to its high base attack stat, can also be somewhat threatening offensively. And there's a Pokemon that I would definitely expect to see doing well in the future. Coming in at number 7 is another prankster user, Whimsicott. Whimsicott is a really cool Pokemon.
I love
just like
that
Sylveon,
goddamn
I think that
thing.
it was like pretty well designed, where they built in very clear weaknesses to the Pokemon, but still gave it enough tools that it ends up being very powerful. Like I mentioned, Whimsicott is a prankster user, meaning it's able to use non-damaging moves before most other attacks.
That is a very evil strat.
The main move it uses is Tailwind, which also influences the speed of the battle. Unlike
What do you mean, well, Sushi Boss? Don't tell me there's something like that now.
Grimmsnarl, though, who mainly picks a target and then makes it feel very sad and very slow, Whimsicott doubles its entire team's speed stats for the following 4 turns. And this is just for using the move once. Tailwind has always been one of the best moves in competitive Pokemon, and Whimsicott has been very consistently one of the top Tailwind setters. Tailwind isn't the only thing that Whimsicott can do, though. Because of its prankster ability, it can use a lot of other really disruptive support moves. While Grimmsnarl tends to use mostly defensive supporting moves, Whimsicott tends to use offensive or disruption ones instead. The classic one is Encore, which forces the target to just use whatever move it just used over and over again for the next 3 turns. And this is really threatening because there's a lot of moves in Pokemon that players use that don't do a lot of damage, or like you don't really want to click multiple times in a row. Whimsicott can also use moves that mess with the opponent's stats. The most common ones over time were Fake Tears, which cuts the special defense of whatever it hits in half, basically allowing Whimsicott to pair with a really strong, fast special attacker and then just wipe any Pokemon it wants off the board. And Charm, which cuts an opponent's attack in half, basically making a physical attacker extremely sad. Whimsicott does appreciate its typing as well. As a grass type, it's immune to Amoonguss, which lets it do some neat things like mostly ignore Spore and Rage Powder. And as a fairy type, it's able to use the move Moonblast, which is one of the strongest moves in the game. It's slightly stronger than other moves that have no drawback. It never misses, and it also has a really high chance of lowering whatever it hits special attack stat. Whimsicott's Moonblast is great
so
at doing
funny.
chip damage to frail Pokemon or hitting Pokemon for super effective, or just launching it at special attackers and saying, hey, if your special attack falls, Whimsicott's kind of gotten a bonus here. There's been a lot of really cool Whimsicott sets over the years. One of the ones that was first popularized was using Whimsicott with Mega Gengar. Mega Gengar's Shadow Tag ability prevents any opposing Pokemon on the field from switching out unless they're a Ghost type, and so you could use Encore from Whimsicott and disable from Mega Gengar.
You're just gonna trap them in there. You're just holding them hostage.
Force a Pokemon to struggle. You could also use Fake Tears with the set as well. So you could either, like, if they protect from the Fake Tears and Sludge Bomb or Shadow Ball play, just Encore them in and then they're stuck and they can't switch and they can't attack. Or
That
you could
is
just,
so
like, if the
fucked
Pokemon
up.
is threatening, use Encore and Disable at the same time, force them to struggle for the next 3 turns and basically play a 2 versus 1 until they knock themselves out. My favorite Whimsicott set, though, is the one that won the World Championships back in 2017. Whimsicott used Normalium Z with the move Nature Power. Nature Power transforms
What does
into
that
different
do?
moves depending on what the terrain is and a couple other conditions as well, but it still always used the Normalium Z crystal. Basically, what this allowed Whimsicott to do was use both Thunderbolt Z move or Moonblast Z move, depending on what the terrain was, and the team had the 2 terrain setters that could set up the terrains that would then change the move.
Tapus.
It's a really cool Pokemon, and even nowadays when we have Tornadus, which is typically considered to be a better Tailwind setter, Whimsicott has still found its niche and is still doing well. Just as
Hey,
a reminder, if
Whimsicott
you're
is
enjoying
still meta now.
this video, maybe just double check and see if you're subscribed, if it's something that you're interested in. Subscribing is a great way to support the channel, and it's also a great way to tell YouTube, hey, like, this video is not so bad, maybe I'd like to see another one. I care a lot about trust when it comes to viewership. Like, I don't ever want to feel like people clicking on a video feel like their time is being wasted or that they didn't get a high quality product. And so, of course, if you subscribe and decide that you know, at some point down the line, you don't want to watch the videos anymore, or you think that they're bad or whatever, like, I totally understand. But yeah, in the meantime, if you do want to subscribe, it does help the channel out a lot. Let's talk about the number 6 best fairy type of all time, Tapu Lele. This is the point in the video
I love
where
that
things
goddamn
got
Pokemon. I spent so much goddamn money during the Sun and Moon era getting my copies of Tapu Lele GX for my decks. They were like $50 each, and I paid $50 each.
really difficult for me in my research phase. I actually had to go really deep into the research because, as a disclosure, every Pokemon remaining on this list is incredible. Like, one of the top Pokemon in their generation, one of the top Pokemon of all time, like probably every remaining Pokemon's in the top like 20.
Okay,
Maybe
damn.
top 30, at least top 30 Pokemon ever. And the fact that Tapu Lele is number 6 is not a knock on Tapu Lele. It's merely a statement of how strong the remaining Pokemon are. Tapu Lele is one of the Tapu Pokemon. There are 4 of them, and each of them sets a different terrain when they switch in. Tapu Lele sets up the Psychic terrain, which nowadays is mostly used defensively as a way to
Yeah, that card was really pricey because whenever you played Tapu Lele GX down, you could you play it down from like to the bench, you could search your deck for any supporter card and put it in your hand. Now we have that basically same exact card now in the form of Meowth and in the past Luminion, but it's just super powerful.
stop priority attacks, as
That's why it was
any
expensive.
priority move used on a grounded target will fail if Psychic terrain is up. But it also gives all Psychic type moves a damage boost, which is the main way that Tapu Lele used it. It's worth noting that in part because Tapu Lele was so strong, Psychic terrain got a nerf. It used to boost the Pokemon's power by 50% or Psychic type moves by 50%. Now it's closer to 30%, and by closer I think it's exactly 30%. When Tapu Lele was first introduced in Sun and Moon, it very quickly established itself as one of the top threats. It won 6 international events over basically the 3 years that it was legal,
So
and although it never
good.
won the world championships, it did get
That
second
one
place.
Shaman EX? No. I was not playing that during that era.
Twice. The thing about Tapu Lele is that
I think it's banned now and expanded. Shaman EX?
multipliers in Pokemon are really valuable. We saw this most recently with Miraidon, where even a move that's relatively low in base power can start picking up one-hit KOs when you start multiplying it by like all these different factors. Tapu Lele could do this as well. Not only did it have a really high base special attack stat, and not only were its moves very high base power for what they were, like Psychic and Moonblast are both really like high consistent damage output,
really good.
base power moves, but it could also multiply that even further with Psychic terrain and an offensive item like Psyche MZ, Choice Specs, or Life Orb. Psyche MZ Tapu Lele was one of the strongest Z moves that we saw, period. Like when you started thinking about what's the strongest Z move my Pokemon might have to survive, that was like the upper bar. Like most Pokemon probably can't survive this, so maybe you'll try to survive the Z move through Protect and then a regular Psychic. Psyche MZ wasn't the only way to use Tapu Lele though. I mentioned Life Orb, but the Choice Specs was actually pretty popular as well. Choice Specs Tapu Lele were often trained to be very defensive actually, basically saying, hey, Tapu Lele's not so frail, but it's not so bulky. If I use the choice specs to make it super strong, then I can focus most of my like stat points into its defenses and HP to make it like survive a lot longer. Choice items are less scary on Tapu Lele than other Pokemon because of the psychic terrain stopping priority moves, most notably Fake Out, which is one of the best tools against Pokemon holding a choice item because they can't protect. Choice Scarf Tapu Lele was used as well, actually, and one of the coolest sets that Choice Scarf Tapu Lele used was Magic Room, which if you don't know what that does, I don't blame you. It's extremely niche. It's a move that turns off the effect of all items for the next 5 turns. There was a Pokemon that we'll talk about in a little bit that was extremely powerful but had to use its item to get like online, and so you could use Choice Scarf Magic Room Tapu Lele and turn off the item before it could attack, and then you would no longer be Choice Scarf locked into Magic Room because you had just disabled all the items. One thing that I think is really cool about Tapu Lele is that normally terrain setters tend to enable other Pokemon offensively. An example of this is how Miraidon powers up all of the other future Paradox Pokemon. Tapu Lele does power up other Pokemon, but in addition to powering up some offensive Pokemon, it could also power up some supporting Pokemon as well. The most clear case of this was Pokemon
Drifblim a supporting Pokemon back then? Interesting.
That had the ability Unburden. Although these Pokemon could technically be used with any terrain setter, they were really mostly used with Tapu Lele. Basically, Unburden will double a Pokemon's speed stat if its held item is consumed. And as we talked about earlier, being able to double one of your stats is a really big deal. The item that these Pokemon would use is the Psychic Seed item, which will give a Pokemon a special defense boost if the Psychic terrain is up, and then disappear. Effectively, using a Psychic Seed on a Pokemon with Unburden in Psychic terrain would not only double its speed stat, it would also make it 50% tankier. That's the reason we saw Pokemon like Drifblim and Excelgor actually get used a fair bit and actually both win international level events because they were really fast, especially tanky with the seed, and they had really disruptive move pools. Drifblim could use Will-O-Wisp to burn a target, as well as Tailwind to double its whole team's speed stat, which is especially threatening with like Choice Specs or Psyche MZ Tapu Lele, basically having both the speed and the power. And Excelgor could use moves like Acid Spray to basically be a better fake tiers that, cut the target's special defense in half. It could use Final Gambit as a one-hit KO on most Pokemon. It could use Encore if anybody tried to play defensively. It had a really wide move pool. Tapu Lele also enabled offensive Pokemon, most notably Ultra Necrozma. Ultra Necrozma had a signature Z move called...
Am I gonna get hate for saying I'm not a huge fan of Necrozma, like all of them? I don't know, I just find Necrozma to be kind of just a weird Pokemon. I just feel like in my head it just doesn't fit. But then it comes from a generation where we just have literal aliens as like Ultra Beast Pokemon. I don't know. I've never been a huge Necrozma glazer.
Like that burns my eyes. That did enormous damage. Because it was a signature move, it was just stronger than most other Z moves, and Z moves were already like double the base power of most moves in the game.
I will not stand for any Necrozma slander. Necrozma fucking sucks.
Imagine that a
ugly ass Pokemon that nobody cares about.
Signature Z move boosted by Psychic Terrain could do like almost unthinkable amounts of damage. Tapu Lele's Psychic Surge not only powered up Ultra Necrozma even further,
I don't know, maybe
but
I'm just like a Gen 7 hater. I don't hate Gen 7, it's not my favorite though.
Do super effective damage. Tapu Lele is an incredible Pokemon, and I wish I could put it higher up, but I just can't because the Pokemon above it are so incredible.
I'm sorry, Necrozma's not cool. What if Deoxys is an Ultra Beast? Deoxys is cool, though. I like Deoxys. It could also be because the Deoxys movie was fun. The Duskmane Necrozma GX deck? Nah.
5 now. Coming in at number 5, I went back and forth on this a lot, and it honestly feels truly criminal to have this Pokemon this low. But ultimately, I'm putting Tapu Fini at number 5.
Oh,
Tapu
that's
Fini
right.
is one of the best Pokemon out of Sun and Moon. Period. It won the World Championships twice in its first 3 years. What you have to understand about Tapu Fini is that it really was the only Tapu that was defensive. The other Tapus like to use their terrain offensively, but Tapu Fini's Misty Surge doesn't power up fairy type moves. Thank goodness for that. Instead, it blocks all incoming status conditions and cuts the damage of dragon type attacks.
I don't know what that is.
Blocking all status conditions is really nice because like there's a fair bit of variance in competitive Pokemon with like critical hits, freeze, sleep, secondary effects like Thunderbolt.
I always thought it was like just Lele because it's pink. Because in my brain I was like, oh, Bulu's grass, Fini's water, Coco is electric.
Paralyzing, all that good. all that good stuff. And Tapu Fini basically meant you didn't have to worry about any of it. Tapu Fini has the stats that make it really want to lean into being a defensive Pokemon, but what I think is interesting is that you weren't forced to use it that way. I top cut the World Championships with an offensive Tapu Fini with the Choice Specs item, which was somewhat commonplace back then. Basically, it's kind of like the reverse of the Tapu Lele we were talking about, where because Tapu Fini has such good defensive stats, you can afford to train it.
No, I said Tapu Bulu. Tapu Bulu's the grass one.
Really offensively, and you wouldn't end up being super frail because you were just naturally so tanky. Tapu Fini could also be a setup sweeper. This was a set that was pretty popular, using Calm Mind to basically make it borderline unkillable on the special side, and it still had good natural physical defense, and after Calm Mind, it hit as hard as Choice Specs, plus then you could use a healing item like Leftovers or Citrus Berry. Tapu Fini could also use a Z Crystal if it wanted. It could use Tapunium Z, which would do 75% of the target's remaining health to whatever it hit. It could use Waterium Z for big single target water type damage, Fairyum Z for same thing with fairy type damage, or it could lean into its supporting role, which it was kind of designed for. Tapu Fini has an incredible move pool. It gets moves like Icy Wind to control the speed of the battle, Heal Pulse to heal its partners. Gravity was used a little bit. There was a set that was like Gravity with Primal Groudon, and you would also use Swagger, so you could use Gravity to make all Pokemon touch the ground and make your Groudon's Precipice Blades never miss. And then because Misty Terrain prevents all status conditions, you could use the move Swagger, which doubles a Pokemon's attack stat, but then causes them to be confused. But there was no drawback because the Misty Terrain was preventing all like status conditions, so you wouldn't even get confused. I actually almost won a tournament. I finished in the semifinals, I think, with Choice Scarf Tapu Fini with Soak, which turned the target to a water type. And I used this with Shedinja. I would use Soak on my own Shedinja, and if the opponent didn't have a grass or a grass or electric type move, Shedinja just won the game on one turn. It was really, really hard to deal with. Again, Tapu Fini won the World Championships 2 out of its first 3 years, and it was still good in Sword and Shield. It was a top Pokemon throughout the Players' Cups, and when live events returned in 2022, Tapu Fini was used not super like a ton, but a little bit on one of the main archetypes that use Trick Room. When I was making this list, I showed it to some of my friends who also are competitive Pokemon experts, and one person thought that Tapu Fini should have been the #1 Pokemon on this list. So to give you some idea of how good it was, like, yeah, like top competitive players think that maybe Tapu Fini is the best fairy type of all time. I don't personally agree, but Tapu Fini is so incredible that to act otherwise and act like 5th place is like a bad placement for it, I think would be a little bit disingenuous.
What's better than Tapu Fini?
But let's talk about some other fairy type Pokemon that are very, very good. If you only started following competitive Pokemon this year, I'm sure that you would be shocked if this Pokemon did not make it on the list. It's Fluttermane. I was really torn about where to put Fluttermane on this list. It's won 1 World Championship, but it's only been legal for 1 World Championship, and it's won 3 international level tournaments, but it's only been legal for 6. Of the 3 internationals that Fluttermane didn't win, it got 2nd place at 2 and 3rd place at a 3rd. In other words, Fluttermane has never finished outside of the top 3 at an international championship since it's become legal. Fluttermane is arguably the single best Pokemon to come out of Scarlet and Violet. It is such an incredible Pokemon.
And it's actually not a it wasn't a bad Pokemon in the TCG either, because if you had Fluttermane in the front, if I'm remembering correctly, it does shut off active abilities, like active Pokemon.
Which is also kind of crazy because on the physical side, it's extremely frail. Fluttermane's HP and defense stats are abnormally low, but they are so low because of its other stats being so high. Fluttermane's special bulk, speed, and special attack are just tremendous. Like, tremendous isn't even the right word. Like, if I had to show one example of power creep of Pokemon becoming stronger over time in a way that makes past Pokemon obsolete, I would show Fluttermane. The rule used to be that the fastest a Pokemon could be without being like incredibly frail and pretty gimmicky was 130 speed stat. Like, that was the upper limit. That was where Tapu Koko was. That was where Mega Gengar was. And if you wanted to go any faster, you had to pay the price of basically some major weakness, like how Pheromosa has no bulk. Fluttermane is the exception to that rule. In fact, Fluttermane is the biggest example of that rule being obsolete. It is so incredibly fast, and it's also so incredibly strong. Fluttermane probably isn't the most popular Pokemon because, like, yeah, it was so dominant, but I actually really like Fluttermane, and I think it's a really cool Pokemon. I actually almost made an entire video just talking about why Fluttermane is so cool. Fluttermane is one of the most customizable Pokemon we've ever had. Just off the top of my head, you can use Focus Sash Fluttermane, Choice Specs Fluttermane, Booster Energy Special Attack Fluttermane, Booster Energy Speed Fluttermane. I used Sub Leftovers Fluttermane before, which was I mean, it was actually really good, to be honest. Like, it's not popular, but it was really good. Fairy Feather or Pixie Plate, they do the same
There's just too many ways to build this goddamn Pokemon
thing. That's been used before. That's basically 7 different items, and I'm sure I'm forgetting about some off the top of my head. On top of that, the way that you train Fluttermane changes how it plays a ton. Because Fluttermane's physical bulk is so bad, there's some incentive to really leaning into it and basically training it to survive some powerful physical attacks. Doing so will completely change how Fluttermane plays. On the other hand, you can also lean into its more offensive nature by making it really fast and really strong, but then it will be really frail. A lot of bringing out the full potential of Fluttermane, in my opinion, is walking this tightrope where you want enough speed to outspeed the key threats. You want to hit hard enough that like you are happy that you have Fluttermane and that it's doing, you know, big damage. And you want to make sure it's not going down to random stray attacks. And the training makes such a huge difference in how you have to play your Fluttermane. Like if your Fluttermane is super defensive, you can be a little bit more risky, but if it's really frail, you need to make sure that your big attacks are really counting. The item also is so interesting because it basically almost always boosts one of Fluttermane's stats, whether it's speed or it's special attack, or I guess it's defenses if you count like Focus Sash. If you're getting a speed boost from the booster energy, then you don't have to worry so much about your speed stat because you're going to outspeed everything anyway, right? Fluttermane was clearly designed to be this offensive Pokemon with moves like Moonblast and Shadow Ball and Dazzling Gleam just being incredible type coverage and doing so much damage and having no real risk or drawback. The players also realized that Fluttermane can be used as a supporting Pokemon. Moves like Icy Wind, Thunder Wave, and Taunt on a speed booster energy Fluttermane have all gotten like a decent bit of play, and it basically transforms the way Fluttermane plays completely with a focus on its speed and its bulk and its disruptive capabilities. It's really hard to get rid of in one attack, and although it doesn't hit as hard, it's mostly setting up for its partners to do most of the heavy lifting.
Yeah,
Fluttermane has spent the
really
majority of the time that it's been
also, I did not realize how fire this freaking shiny is. Listen, I'm not a big green shiny person. All right, green shinies are not my favorite shinies, but Fluttermane is pretty cool.
Eagle as the #1 most used Pokemon. It climbed pretty quickly to that spot when it was first released, and like only recently has kind of relinquished control now that we have these really powerful restricted Pokemon back. With that being said, the reason that it's not higher is that like it hasn't been out for that long, and I'd like to see more of it before declaring it as like a, you know, a top
green for
3
Fluttermane is
best
acceptable.
fairy type Pokemon of all time. And because the Pokemon that are above it are just really, really, really good. So I guess let's talk about them. Starting with our number 3 slot, Tapu Koko. Tapu Koko is the final Tapu Pokemon that will be appearing on our list. Sorry to all the Tapu Bulu fans out there, you're gonna have to take it up with Rillaboom. Tapu Koko is an electric and fairy type that is the fastest of the Tapus and one of the most slippery. While Tapu
freaking dethroned
leans into its defenses and Tapu Lele leans into its offenses, Tapu Koko kind of leans into its speed, I guess. Tapu Koko is actually a special attacker, despite the fact that it has a higher attack stat than its special attack. But don't let this fool you. Tapu Koko still does immense amounts of damage. With a damage boosting item like Choice Specs or Life Orb and the electric terrain to also boost it, Tapu Koko doesn't hit as hard as Tapu Lele, but is still very, very strong. The thing that makes Tapu Koko so threatening, and the reason why I think it was so dominant, and the reason why it's this high on the list and above Tapu Fini, is that it's extremely hard to pin down. You can think of Tapu Koko kind of like Miraidon's little brother. It uses the move Volt Switch, which does damage and then switches Tapu Koko out, and because it's so fast, that often means it's not taking an attack. So you can bring it in, Volt Switch, switch out, and then later in the game, bring it in, Volt Switch again, and just kind of put people in this blender where they never have a chance to actually damage Tapu Koko. And because of the electric terrain, especially the Gen 7 electric terrain when it was so strong, Tapu Koko was just doing a ton of damage with its Volt Switch. It's not that Volt Switch is the only thing that Tapu Koko had to do either. It could also use an offensive item. It could also use Thunderbolt, which is a stronger move and could pick up some big KOs, especially with like Choice Specs or Life Orb, or a Z Crystal. Electrium Z Tapu Koko is again one of the strongest Z moves. It's not quite as strong as Psychium Z Tapu Lele, but from such
animations always take me out.
Fast Pokemon, you really don't want to have to deal with Electrium Z. I actually won the North American International Championships with Fairyum Z Tapu Koko, basically compensating for the fact that Tapu Koko's only real special fairy type move is Dazzling Gleam, which isn't very powerful, and so if you had Fairyum Z, you could suddenly turn that into a much stronger single target burst attack. Tapu Koko did mostly lean into these more offensive items, Life Orb, Choice Specs, Z Crystal, but you'd occasionally see some defensive items as well. Focus Sash was used a little bit at times, though I don't think it was ever the most popular set, just to keep Tapu Koko alive and forfeit a little bit of damage in exchange for a little bit of survivability. But some players actually ran Assault Vest. Assault Vest raises Tapu Koko's special defense by 50%, and in exchange, it won't let it use any non-damaging moves. So this Tapu Koko used moves like Electro Web to do some damage and slow down the speeds of the opponent, Nature's Madness to cut the remaining health in half of whatever it hits, and actually a move that's been removed from the game, Skydrop, which is basically like, you can think of it kind of like Forced Fly, where the user would pick up the target and just take them out of commission for a turn. There was this one thing that you could do if you had
You could do that?
Tapu Koko and a Trick Room user left against a Pokemon that couldn't protect, where basically you would use Sky Drop, pick up the target into the air, and have the Trick Room setter use Trick Room to reverse the speed order. And then the next turn, your Trick Room setter would be faster. You would attack. The opposing Pokemon would be next, but they would be in the air, so they couldn't attack. And then Tapu Koko would land and do a little bit of damage with Sky Drop and let them out of the move, but they'd already tried to attack for the turn. And that turn, you would reverse Trick Room. And so it was basically this perma lock where you could permanently lock down one Pokemon and not allow them to make any moves. It never came up for me personally, but it is like a really cool and very niche like strategy that you could pull off with Assault Vest Tapu Koko. As someone who played in Generation 7, I found Tapu Koko incredibly hard to deal with. It's so slippery and it did so much damage, and the sets that it could use would change how it played so much that I remember in 2017 when Tapu Koko was first released, I just like couldn't figure it out. Like no matter what I did, Tapu Koko just kept beating me. And yeah, like I think there's a reason for that. I think it's because Tapu Koko is just an incredibly powerful Pokemon. Tapu Koko not only won the World Championships twice, which is a really big deal by the way. Like most Pokemon haven't won the World Championships even once, and very few have won it more than once. But Tapu Koko also won 6 different national and international level events.
That's a lot.
For reference, Tapu Fini won 3 international level events, and so 6 double that is ridiculous. It's one of the strongest Pokemon to come out of Generation 7, and I think it absolutely deserves to be this high up on the list. Which brings us to just 2 Pokemon left. As a spoiler, I think the #1 slot actually may be kind of controversial, but before we talk about that, let's talk about the #2 slot, Zacian. Many of you may have expected Zacian to be at #1, and there's a strong case that Zacian should be at #1. Zacian has won the only world championships it participated in. It's also won an international championship and got second at another one. Zacian had one of the most dominant performances we've ever seen out of any Pokemon, let alone a restricted Pokemon, in its first legal year. You were only allowed to have 1 or 2 restricted Pokemon on your team. In the format that Zacian was legal in, it was 2. And so because of that, you don't normally expect these restricted Pokemon to reach super high usage levels because you're just restricted in how many like of them you can use. Zacian was the second most used Pokemon period at the World Championships in 2022. And I don't mean second most used restricted. I mean second most used Pokemon. It was on a whopping 66% of all teams.
What number is that if you round it up?
It was only behind Incineroar in terms of usage. And Incineroar was partially only that high because Zacian was everywhere, and Incineroar was one of the only ways to slow down Zacian. Zacian's ability Intrepid Sword gives it an attack boost every single time it switches in, or it did in Sword and Shield. For reference, Zacian's stats are already some of the best of any restricted Pokemon we've ever seen, and its attack stat is basically as strong as...
My god, that attack and speed stat are freaking abysmal.
Primal Groudon and Mega Rayquaza.
Holy fuck, that's a lot. I don't want to deal with that. I think I used the wrong word there, but it's fine.
That's not factoring in the +1 boost from its ability Intrepid Sword, making it basically 50% stronger than those behemoths. Zacian, just like Mega Mawile, is a Steel and Fairy type Pokemon, which, if you recall, is the best type combination in the game. There is only one built-in weakness to that type combination, and it's the fact that neither Steel or Fairy can hit opposing Steel type Pokemon. Zacian doesn't have to worry about this though, because Zacian gets the move Sacred Sword, one of the most consistent and best fighting type moves in the game. You know what fighting hits for super effective damage? Steel. And Incineroar. Zacian's signature move did double damage to Dynamax Pokemon, which is a pretty big deal. Dynamax was what the entire game was kind of built around, and so having a Pokemon that could just ignore the defensive benefits of Dynamaxing is a pretty big deal. It's not like this was like a widespread phenomenon either. It was basically just Zacian, Zamazenta, and Eternatus who could do this, and Zamazenta and Eternatus were way, way worse than Zacian. Zacian received one of the single biggest nerfs of any Pokemon ever. Its ability was changed to only work once per battle instead of every time it switched in. It got a base stat nerf. They removed Dynamax Pokemon from the game, so its signature move doesn't have a secondary effect anymore. And most importantly, they changed the animation, so now its signature move doesn't look cool anymore. And the nerfs work. Zacian is no longer a top threat, though some players still believe in it, and it's seen a little success in the current format. But I think how severe the nerfs are telling of how good Zacian was. For its incredible dominance and really legendary run, I think Zacian is the second best fairy type Pokemon of all time, but not the best. And I need to tell you something. The Pokemon that I've selected as the best fairy type Pokemon of all time has never won the world championships. That's probably surprising because there are Pokemon on this list that have won it twice. But when I was making this list, I knew that I couldn't just decide based on number of accolades or number of, world championship wins.
Fair.
What I really wanted to think about how impactful was this Pokemon? How much of a menace was it? How did it center the game around itself?
How many crash outs did this Pokemon cause within the last decade?
And under those conditions, there can be no denying that the best fairy type Pokemon of all time is Xerneas. Unlike
I love the goddamn Deer.
Every other Pokemon on this list except for
I love
Sylveon,
Bambi.
Xerneas does not have a secondary typing. It is a pure fairy type Pokemon. Xerneas was introduced in X and Y, and the first time
I
that
don't
it
think
became
anybody
legal,
is surprised
it
with this
completely
one.
took over the game. What you need to know about Xerneas is that it has a signature move called Geomancy. Geomancy doubles not only its speed stat, not only its special attack stat, but its special defense stat as
lovely.
well. We've talked a couple
Great.
times about how
Awesome.
doubling a Pokemon
Smiles.
stats can have a pretty big impact. Xerneas doubles 3 of its
What the fuck? That special attack is fucking ridiculous. Wait, you guys can't see it here. 262!
stats. 3 of its 4 stats that it actually uses because it doesn't use its attack stat. It does take a move to do this. It has to click the move Geomancy, and it also requires the item the Power Herb. When I mentioned earlier Magic Room Tapu Lele, I was referring to Xerneas being the Pokemon that it shuts down. But spending 1 turn and giving up your item to double 3 of your most important stats is a very small price to pay. I think that they probably tried to build some counterplay into Xerneas by giving it very limited move coverage. It basically only learns fairy type attacks. It only needs to learn fairy type attacks, as it turns out. Xerneas' ability Fairy Aura powers up all fairy type moves when it's on the field, including its
awesome.
own. Between Moonblast, which as we've talked about is just one of the strongest moves in the game period, and Dazzling Gleam, which hits both targets, Xerneas doesn't need to run any coverage moves. You can't actually resist a boosted Xerneas. Even Pokemon that resist it are getting KO'd in 2 hits unless they specifically train themselves to be remarkably tanky. So to recap, we have a Pokemon that can double 3 of its most important stats and has the
Awesome.
single best type in the
Great.
game with both a powerful single target
Amazing.
attack and one of the best spread moves. And that's a big part of the reason why when Xerneas was first introduced, it became used on the comp that was like the team to end all teams. This team is called Big Six, and it revolved around the duo of Xerneas and Primal Groudon. These Pokemon have pretty nice synergy. Xerneas can't hit fire, steel, or poison type Pokemon, all of which are weak to ground, which is Primal Groudon's typing, and Xerneas is weak to steel and poison, both of which are resisted by Primal Groudon. Because it is so incredibly
my
specially
God, it's
bulky
literally
after
the dream
Geomancy, it's also
team.
really good at bullying Primal Kyogre, who is Primal Groudon's main predator, and it also is really mean to Mega Rayquaza, who is used with Primal Kyogre to hopefully help against Primal Groudon. This team and its variants like Big B, Big C, and a whole bunch of other letters was the most dominant team that we've ever seen in all of competitive Pokemon. It's really the only example of a team like being found pretty early on and being completely unbeatable for pretty much the entire season. It's not that it won literally
Must have been so miserable playing around that time.
every tournament, though it came pretty close. It's just that whenever players would discover counterplay, the big X teams would just adapt. Like they would just find ways around it or become used to the matchup or make small tweaks. And this team was so incredibly unbalanced. It's the most dominant team out of any team ever in competitive Pokemon.
Is
And
there
for
any
those of you who are
team
familiar with your
like now that comes anywhere close to what this was, or no?
VGC history, you'll know that this is the year that I won the World Championships. At the time, it felt like you had to choose between beating this Big Six kind of team composition or beating everything else. Like it was really hard to do both. And along with the help of my friends, I was able to build a team that could kind of actually do both. The way that we eventually conquered this team was by building out a very complex flow chart where every single turn of every single lead composition, we knew which play to make sure that we would end up on top. It required that level of planning and foresight and optimization in order to have a chance against what was like the strongest team of all time. And
Oh my
Xerneas was a huge
goodness.
part of that. And it wasn't even like Xerneas was forced to be on that one specific team. Xerneas has seen a lot of success over the years being used with other restricted Pokemon as well. We've seen it with Primal Kyogre, Lunala, Rayquaza. There's a whole bunch of other ways you can use Xerneas. But Xerneas never won the World Championships. Why is that? Well, it had the biggest target on its back out of any Pokemon in the format. Even more than Pokemon like Mega Rayquaza,
Oh my
Primal
God,
Groudon,
everybody was just countering this little guy. Or I guess he's not that
and
little.
then Primal Kyogre. Xerneas' ability to just run away with games was so threatening that players had to really counter it. Xerneas' presence alone caused really niche tech options to pop up. Moves like Haze, which remove all stat boosts, Roar and Whirlwind, which force a
Awesome.
Pokemon to switch
Little guy, he was a monster.
out, taking away their stat boosts. Magic Room, Tapu Lele, we talked about. The item Red Card, which I wouldn't know what it did if I hadn't, had to deal with Xerneas. When a Pokemon hits a Pokemon holding a red card, the Pokemon that attacked is forced to switch out. I brought Red Card Heatran to Nationals in 2016. Didn't go very well for me. And there were a bunch of other options that players tried out as well. Basically, Xerneas was the bar. Like Xerneas was like you have to be this tall to play the game. You have to be this tall to ride the ride. And most of the year players couldn't clear that bar. By the world championships, the players who were really seriously gunning to be world champion were so determined to get over that bar that they really devoted a lot of attention and care to just beating Xerneas. So it never won the world championships, but despite being
everybody's #1 op
legal for only 2 formats, it won 7 international level events. As far as I'm aware,
crazy.
that's more than any other Pokemon on this list in just 2 legal rule sets.
Mega Rayquaza created a banned category for Uber tier and Smogon. Xerneas wasn't on that tier because the entire metagame shifted to counter it, and there was just enough counters that it stayed off. Oh my goodness.
Legal in 2022, but they added Zacian, so I'm not counting that one because, yeah, like it was basically like Xerneas not being in the game. Xerneas is a Pokemon that if I could, I would wish to never come back. In fact, it might be my #1 most wished for Pokemon to never return now that Smeargle can't learn Dark Void anymore. So even though it never won the World Championships, it was so dominant in a way that few other Pokemon can claim to be that I think it is the best Fairy-type Pokemon of all time.
I mean, if everybody...
And that's my list.
If everybody was building to counter it, then it does deserve to be #1 on the list.
Hope you liked it. If you did, you might like this video I made on the best ghost type Pokemon of all time. It was actually surprisingly challenging. Like ghost types, you don't think about it, but there's a lot of really, really good ones. And let me just tell you, you're never gonna believe where Gengar ranks.
#1? #1? I mean... why wouldn't it be #1? I don't know. Maybe. I just remember Mega Gengar being a menace back then. I don't know, guys. I think Gengar is actually one of the worst ghost-type Pokemon. I don't know. Something in my intuition just tells me that. I can't really say. Chat, I need to go fill my water and pee. You guys know what time it is. You guys know what time it is. I will be right back. Sorry, it took me a bit. I was also checking on one of my plants outside because I looked out my window and I was like, oh my god, he looks so sad. So I went to go give my plant some water. I'm sorry, I was scared. I was like, oh my god, I don't want you dying. Anyways, we're back. We are so back. Let me turn off this. Oh my goodness. These are both funny videos. Having them die out of thirst in there. So here's the thing. I know it's like, I'm still trying to figuring out the watering schedule for my plants. Especially because I'm also scared of like overwatering them, because that's also a way to kill them. So some of my plants, like the sun, they actually thrive in the heat. So I'm still figuring out like what's the best way to water, but we'll see. Anyways, let's go to this video actually. Let's do this one and then we'll end with this one. Alrighty, gamers. I don't think I've reacted to this before, and if I have, chat, please do me a favor and tell me. But I don't think so. I went to go look it up and I didn't see it. So we're gonna be watching 20 rare Pokemon you shouldn't catch. I don't know what he means by that. Is it just like, don't waste your Pokeballs, or it's just not worth it? I don't know. But I guess Mikey will tell us. Anyways, 20 whale Pokemon you shouldn't catch by M&J TV.
Fans, Michael here, and I don't know
Hi,
about
Michael.
you, but if a Pokemon is really rare, I think it should be pretty strong. If I'm gonna go through the effort of trying to find a tough-to-find Pokemon, then
if you're I guess he's referring to like if it's a Pokemon that is, like he said, tough to find, or you have to grind over like a lot to get it, and it's just ass, right?
it should be worth my time. Today's video is about those Pokemon that are not worth it. I'm going to be covering 20 Pokemon that I don't think are strong enough to justify their rarity. Sure, you need them for your Pokedex, but you don't really want to use them on your team. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel, pick up some merch at mnjtvmerch.com, and let's dive in. I'll be going through this list in Pokedex order, and for most Pokemon, I'll be focusing on their rarity in their home region. And the first Pokemon we'll be discussing is number 1, Farfetch'd. Prior to the introduction of Galarian Farfetch'd and Surfetch'd, regular Farfetch'd has been a severe
Pokemon. I'm trying to get my PhD in Pokemon.
Down as a Pokemon.
I have an associates.
Pokemon. This fully.
Oh, I was gonna mention Feebas. Feebas is so cool. I love that goddamn thing. Like, I know it's not probably worth all the hours, but I just have a very emotional connection to that Pokemon. So for me, it's worth it.
Evolved Pokemon had a meager base stat total.
Yeah, P and PhD stands for Pokemon Honorary Dipshit.
Only 300 and
Director was probably a better term. I say dipshit. Why was that the first like D word that came to my mind?
52. That is lower than Elekid. While it was buffed to 377 in Gen 7, it's still nowhere close to high enough to use over other Kanto normal flying types like Pidgeot, Fearow, and Dodrio. I believe that fully evolved Pokemon that are this weak should be obtainable very early and very easily. For example, Butterfree and Beedrill. Their base stat totals are under 400, which side note is still stronger than Farfetch'd, but you can get them before the first badge. Their purpose is to act as bridge Pokemon, tiding you over until you get something stronger down the line. Farfetch'd should be a similar bridge Pokemon, available before the second badge at the absolute latest. But that's not the reality. The reality is that Farfetch'd is one of the rarest Pokemon in the entire Kanto region. It's not the rarest. Well, I guess it depends on your definition. For the sake of this video specifically,
I haven't played Gen 1. Was it hard to get it?
Rare applies to both Pokemon that have low encounter rates and are found in few places, and Pokemon that you can only obtain a very limited amount of.
Oh, it's trade
Farfetch'd
only.
actually falls into both of those categories.
Oh,
In red,
wonderful.
blue, fire red, and leaf green, there is only one Farfetch'd in the entire game. You receive it via in-game trade in Vermilion City. In Fire
Got
Red and
it.
Leaf Green, you can breed it to get more, but only once you get to 4 Island in the post-game. In Red and Blue, this Farfetch'd is all you get for the entire run. Side note, I've never understood the location of this trade. In X and Y, you can trade for a Farfetch'd in Santaloon City right before the Bug Gym. They give you a flying Pokemon right before the Bug Gym. Good base stat total for that point
Where
in the
could
game.
peeps eat them? No!
And it really helps out, especially new players.
Our Blazer, thank
But
you for the follow.
in the Kanto region, it gives you this Farfetch'd trade right before the Electric Gym? In Yellow and the Let's Go games, they removed the trade in favor
Trading him to go die.
of unlimited Farfetch'd. However, the location is even later. Routes 12 and 13, which require the removal of Snorlax to access. And the encounter chance is low, 10% in Let's Go and only 5% in Yellow. You can get more than one, but they made this useless Pokemon genuinely difficult to find. In short, Farfetch'd is not useful for anything other than a dex entry, so I think it's ridiculous that it's not really easy to get. And that is the last Kanto Pokemon I'm gonna discuss in this video. The rest of the Kanto Pokemon that are rare are strong, and the ones that are weak are easy to find. But now we move on to Johto, and there's gonna be a lot of Pokemon in this part. For some unknown reason, Johto is chock full of a bunch of really weak, fully evolved Pokemon, many of which end up being pretty rare. Haha, it is I, Grunty Boy.
Baby Grunty
What do you
boy.
want? Adventure!
I too want adventure.
Why? Well, sometimes just hanging around the hideout and committing crimes can get a bit dry. Does that also
Real.
apply to bothering me? Oh, never. We always have a rip-snorting good time. But anyways, I'm looking to quench my adventure thirst by playing an MMO action game with RPG elements. Well, that was oddly specific, but do I have the game for you? Trove is the sponsor of this video, and it's exactly what you're looking for.
Minecraft?
This MMO just came out on the Nintendo Switch,
know
and
about
I have
Minecraft
been
anymore.
loving it. It's free
It does kind of look fun
to
though.
play, and in it you get to explore procedurally generated worlds where you can fight monsters, delve into dungeons, gather resources, and collect cool gear. Ah, but does it have building? Like, you can build things, not like physical structures. I mean, it can have those too, those are fine. Wait, that's another spot on request. What is happening? Anyways, yes, you can build in it. You can swap to build mode with the press of a button, allowing you to get creative and modify the world around you and build up your base
Oh, it
that
is
you can take with you
Minecraft.
to any world you hop into. Okay, but are there a variety of classes that you can play as? Have you played this game before? You're requesting this exact game. There are 17 classes you can
a
easily
lot of
swap
classes.
between once you unlock them, and I personally play as a boomeranger right now. Also, the game has some really fun mounts like dragons, but I've been hopping
cake?
around on a cake. Perfect, it checks all my boxes. I'll start playing Trove at once. Great, the link to Trove is in the description below. But is that really all you came here for? Well, I don't own a Switch, so I guess I'll just take yours. Ta-ta! Oh, come on!
He's just stealing
Ugh.
stuff.
Anyways, thanks so much to Trove for sponsoring this video, but now, let's get back to it. The first Johto Pokemon I'm covering is number 2, Sudowoodo. If you've played through the Johto region, then you've encountered this Pokemon. Sudowoodo is the strange tree blocking your path to Ecruteak City that requires a sprinkle of water to agitate and move. In Gen 2, this Sudowoodo is the only one in the entire game, excluding breeding. In Gen 4, it can only be respawned after defeating the Elite Four, with it being a mandatory encounter that requires beating the Elite Four to respawn, if you're even in the game
looks
that
like a
can
wiener.
respawn it, that it's no wonder my buddy John A.
I don't know if it looks like a weeder.
aka Pokemon 7, thought
PM7.
Sudowoodo was legendary when he was a kid. Yet Sudowoodo's stats are anything
Sudowoodo's
but
fake
legendary.
stats.
A base stat total of only 410 is quite bad for a fully evolved Pokemon,
defense
weaker
isn't
than
that
most
bad.
middle stage starters. And while its defense is great and its attack is pretty decent, its HP and special defense are below average.
Yeah, that's
that combined
kind
with
of
its horrific
buns.
speed means it will almost never go first, which is a death sentence due to its bulk not being high enough to tank hits
Oh,
well.
yeah,
If
for
you care
sure.
about completing the Pokedex, catch the Sudowoodo while you can, because it's probably the only chance you're gonna get. But if you don't care about the Pokedex, then KO it and move on. The next Johto Pokemon held the crown for the weakest Pokemon of all of them for quite some time. Number 3, Sunkern. Now, to be fair, Sunkern can evolve. It's just getting the entry here because it's the Pokemon you actually find in the wild. But even once you evolve it, it's not worth using. Sunflora only has a base stat total of 425, about the same as a middle evolution starter. The stat spread is poorly optimized as well, having poor bulk combined with awful speed.
Grass? Is it not?
Will be outsped and KO'd before it has a chance to use its actually decent special attack. There are countless stronger grass type options in Johto playthroughs. I personally think Sunkern should be a first and second route of the game Pokemon found very easily, like Pidgey or Caterpie. It just is not good enough to warrant hunting for. However, it's actually tricky to find. Only found during the daytime, which severely cuts down on its accessibility. And then the only pre-league place you can catch it is the National Park. The only other place it's found in Gen 2 is all the way in Kanto, but Gen 4 added it in the Safari Zone. I'll admit Sunflora is not as overwhelmingly weak as some of the other—
what Sunflora could have been? That is crazy, but I can see it.
Pokemon we'll discuss in this video, but the fact that it's not any good, yet is only found in a specific place at a specific time of day with only about a 25% encounter rate, that's just too rare for a Pokemon you really should not be using. The next Pokemon is number 4, Yanma. Nowadays, Yanma can evolve
Yanmega, but I guess he's just talking specifically about Yanma.
To the powerful Yanmega, but back in the day before Yanmega was introduced, Yanma was yet another useless bug type. Its base stat total was only 390. With decent speed and meh at best everything else. Now, I could excuse its weakness if it was an early game Pokemon found relatively easily. After all, it's only a bit weaker than Butterfree and Beedrill. However, that is not the case at all. Yanma is only found on Route 35, a route with completely optional grass with the encounter rate of 1%. 1%!
That's so low! That is so freaking low! Huh?
Who authorized this? Why would they make a Pokemon with under 400 base stat total that cannot evolve have a 1% encounter rate in one patch of grass that's out of the way? I get it if you want to put a cool Pokemon hidden away like that, but this useless bug type, why would you do that? To be fair, it can swarm up to an encounter rate of about 30, 40%, something like that. But that's either a lot of waiting or a lot of time put in to make the swarm happen. Regardless, still not worth it in Gen 2. In Gen 4, you can say it's worth it because Yanmega is pretty solid, but
he's a pretty cool Pokemon.
In Gen 2, skip it if you don't care about the Dex. Another Pokemon in a similar situation to Yanma is number 5, Murkrow. Once it got its evolution Honchkrow in Gen 4, it became an acceptably strong Pokemon. But prior to that, Murkrow was an unacceptably weak, fully evolved Pokemon. It has a base stat total of only 405, which is not balanced well. It splits its attacking
the poor thing, I love Murkrow.
Power between both stats, meaning the other stats, primarily bulk, end up really suffering. It's no surprise they gave it an evolution down the line, but in its introductory generation, Gen 2, it was nothing but a Dex filler. A Dex filler that was actually pretty frustratingly difficult to find. It was only found on Route 7 with a 30 to 35% encounter rate, and Route 16 with a 10 to 15% encounter rate. Those rates become effectively lower though, due to it only being found at night. But what upsets me the most about Murkrow is not that its encounter rate doesn't get above 35%, or that it's only found at night on 2 routes. It's the fact that those 2 routes are in the freaking Kanto region, which means this super weak Pokemon is only found after you've become the champion? I will never understand the frankly terrible balancing of the Johto games. So many of the new Johto Pokemon are only in the Kanto region after you beat the Pokemon League.
Of course
And
it
that region is full of really low-level Pokemon, which makes no sense since you're already the champion and have a team that's around level 50. Plus, the level curves for the gym leaders are weird. The whole thing's a mess. Another Pokemon like Murkrow that is sometimes considered its counterpart is number 6, Mischievous. This was the only new Ghost-type Pokemon added in Gen 2, and it was basically pointless.
We have Fluttermane now, but I guess it's not the same Pokemon.
Its base stat total is better than Murkrow's, but is still only 435. Very underwhelming for a fully evolved Pokemon. I definitely see why they created Mismagius, but I have to acknowledge that Mischievous isn't as weak as the other Pokemon we've discussed so far. In fact, it's the strongest one we've discussed so far. However, I still need to cover it because this underwhelming Pokemon is one of the last Pokemon you find in the entire game. In Generation 2, Mischievous is found only at Mount Silver, the location you cannot access until you have 16 gym badges. The wild Pokemon that are supposed to be ripped, yet somehow this weak floating head is there? Mischievous is not the weakest fully evolved Pokemon found there, like Parasect, for example, is weaker. But Paris can be caught as early as Ilex Forest. Mischievous is barely stronger, and yet is an endgame only Pokemon that, as icing on the cake, can only be found at night with a max encounter rate of 30% in only 2 of the rooms in all of Mount Silver. It is insane that the Gen 2 games only added 1 new ghost type that was underwhelming, but it's even more insane that they put that underwhelming ghost type at the butt end of the game. If you want to use
because I think Mischievous is such a cool Pokemon.
Ghost type on your team in Gen 2, you have to use Gengar. In Gen 4, they made Mischievous available much earlier and it can evolve into Mismagius, but in Gen 2, forget it. The next Pokemon I want to cover is number 7,
Just
Wobbuffet.
pretend it's not there.
Now, Wobbuffet is a pretty iconic Pokemon, but that's mainly due to its role in the anime. If it didn't have a big role in the anime, then
it was a baby.
No one would really talk about it aside from when it Shadow Tag traps you in Nuzlocke and kills at least one of your team members, and it's just awful. Its base stat total is only 405.
That sounds like a very, very personal experience.
With garbage everything except HP, which is actually quite astounding. That's because its only purpose is to take hits, then hit back with Counter or Mirror Coat, or execute a well-timed Destiny Bond. Those are its only ways to take out opponents. It's a gimmick Pokemon with little practical battle use, kinda like Ditto. Ditto is a bit better once it got the Imposter ability, but prior to that, its only role was to transform into the enemy Pokemon, or should I say, a worse version of the enemy Pokemon.
Yeah.
Because it keeps Ditto's poor HP and only gets 5 PP for each of the moves. But Ditto can be found all over the place in Kanto and has the out-of-battle usage of breeding. Meanwhile, Wobbuffet has the same or less battle usage than Ditto.
I love my Japanese Ditto.
And has no use outside of battle. Yet, it's far rarer than Ditto. In Gold and Silver, it is found only with
Subathon is over, my guy. I'm so sorry.
Within the Blackthorn side of Dark Cave with a 15% encounter rate. That rate gets worse in Crystal since it becomes available only at night. Crystal does allow you to get one from the game corner, but it has the highest coin cost. Gen 4 is about the same, but with Cerulean Cave and the Safari Zone added. In all of the Johto games though, but especially Gen 2, I think Wobbuffet is far too rare for a Pokemon that is just a gimmick and is useless 99% of the time. Next, let's talk about number 8, Dunsparce. Its base stat total is only 415, which is quite bad for a fully evolved Pokemon. Additionally, its pure normal typing isn't very helpful since there are countless other stronger normal types available. Yet despite its weakness, it's never gotten the evolution that I personally think it deserves, which means it ends up underwhelming in all of its appearances. Yet it's still really rare. In the Johto games, it's got the brutally low—
Dunsparce? Ironically, this Pokemon is actually so good right now in the TCG. It's so silly.
Encounter rate of only 1%.
Can you imagine a Wobbuffet evolution? I don't want to think about that.
on the Violet City side of Dark Cave. To be fair, it can swarm up to a much higher percentage, and in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, its encounter rate is far higher if you use Rock Smash. But for Gen 2 specifically, I don't think it's worth it. If you want a normal type that early in the game, Furret makes more sense. Furret is faster and harder hitting, and you can get it by leveling up an easily found Sentra to level 15. Dunsparce is found very early, but for something you're probably gonna ditch before the second gym, I just don't think it's worth it. Next up is number 9, Quillfish. Prior to Gen 7, it had a base stat total of 430, buffed to 440 in Gen 7. It's not as horrifically bad as some of the other Pokemon we talk about, but the fact that it's a water type means you have tons of better options. Even when it came out back in Gen 2, there was already another Pokemon with the exact same type that was a lot stronger, Tentacruel. Yet despite Quillfish's underwhelming power, it's super hard to get. 2 of the 3 routes it's found in are in Kanto, and once you're there, it only has a 10% chance to show up with the Super Rod in Gen 2, 3% in Gen 4. The last place it's found is Route 32, just south of Violet City, but in Gen 2, you need the Super Rod to get it unless there's a mass outbreak. And the Super Rod is found in frickin' Kanto! Gen 4 made it available with a good rod with a measly 5%, but it is technically an improvement. But in Gen 2, if there's no outbreak, you can't get Quillfish until you beat the frickin' league, which is crazy to me because by then, you'll absolutely have a far stronger water-type Pokemon. Too many Johto Pokemon that are not any good depend on outbreaks. Next is number 10, Corsola, which is an unusual Pokemon for this video. All the other Pokemon I'm focusing on the Pokemon's rarity in their home region, but I'm not doing that for Corsola. In the Johto games, Corsola is found in a lot of different places, so I can
I love Corsola. I think I prefer Cursula though, the ghost one, but I do love Corsola.
Consider it rare, which is fine with me. Its base stat total is a poor 410, clearly outclassed by the bountiful amount of other water-type Pokemon. But since you can find it all over the place, who really cares if it's weak? But if we move on to the next generation, the Hoenn region, then things get a little ridiculous. Despite Hoenn having a massive ocean, Corsola is only found in Route 128 and Evergrande City. Then it only has a 50% chance to be fished up using the Super Rod. You can also trade for one in Pacifilog Town in all the games but Emerald, but this insane person is asking for a Bellossom, a fully evolved stone
that is not a fair trade.
Acquiring Pokemon with a base stat total 70 points higher. That's an awful deal, Lane. In short, if you're in Hoenn, ignore Corsola if you don't care about the dex. The last Johto Pokemon I'm gonna discuss is number 11, Delibird. The 3 fully evolved Pokemon with the lowest base stat totals are Shedinja, Smeargle, and Ditto. But all of them have some kind of gimmick or interesting aspect that makes them unique. Delibird has the 4th lowest base stat total and has no gimmicks whatsoever. It's just garbage. With an inexcusable base stat total of only 330, lower than Tentacool, no one should ever be using a Delibird for any reason. And yet this useless Pokemon is only found in the Ice Path in Johto. Its encounter rate isn't awful.
Listen, he may not be useful in battle, but he's really useful at delivering your mail.
20% in Silver and Soul Silver, and 40% only at Night and Crystal, but that's still not good enough to justify it. But what really upsets me about Delibird is that it's a version exclusive. Why would you make anyone ever have to trade for this thing? A Pokemon that should be found very easily in the early routes of the game. And also its catch rate is only 45, which is the same as Dragonite. Johto has a
that's crazy.
lot of weak Pokemon that are hard to find. Delibird is not as hard to find as a lot of the other Pokemon I've talked about, but it's so mind-bogglingly weak that anything other than easy to find in every Johto game is unacceptable to me.
Fair.
Honestly, you know what? I'm gonna say it. Pokemon would be better if Delibird did not exist. But now we move on to Pokemon.
Ow! Don't say that! Don't say that! That's so mean! How is Santa have the same catch rate as Dragonite? He's just a bird doing his job.
Originally from Hoenn, and God, as much as it pains me, number 12 is cast form. I am very fond.
The booby Pokemon. I don't know, maybe my mind is just corrupted, but those look like a pair of tits to me.
Of this Pokemon, but the sad reality is that it's not worth using.
I will say at least Iron Bundle's like decent in the TCG, forcing your opponent to switch Pokemon. It's kind of good.
Base stat total of 420 split evenly across all stats. It fails to excel in any department. Its weather dependence is fun and cool, but not very practical in most battle situations. Cast form is in this video because it falls into the
boobs. Tell me we're wrong. No, you're not wrong. Those look like tits.
Latter rare category, having access to only a very limited amount. In all of the Hoenn games, you can only get one new cast form as a gift at the Weather Institute. After that, you have to breed to get any more. As much as it pains me, that's a little ridiculous to me.
That's fair.
Does it make me sad?
Yes.
Hell yeah, it does. Next,
yeah.
let's talk about number 13, Chimecho. Well, it has a decent base stat total nowadays, emphasis on decent, of 455. Prior to Gen 7, its base stat total was only 425.
Oof.
On par with the other Pokemon in this video.
At least we have Mega Chimecho now, but I don't know where that sits in the meta. I don't even think I've seen a Mega Chimecho. Is Mega Chimecho in Champions?
There's no reason to use it over any other psychic type in the Hoenn region, of which you've had access to several by now,
Not yet?
like
Okay,
Gardevoir and Grumpig. Yet, for some reason, it's super hard to find. Chimecho is only found in the grass at the summit of Mount Pyre with an awful 2% encounter rate. To make matters worse, the grass at the summit is completely avoidable, and in fact easy to miss due to it being off to the side and obscured by fog. If I never had a guidebook and never cared about completing the Pokedex, there's a good chance I never would have known that Chimecho existed. Which would have been okay because it's pretty freaking weak. So I still, to this day, don't understand why they gave it a baby form instead of an evolution.
The
last
baby
Hoenn
form.
Pokemon I wanted to
It gets a Mega Evolution, but, you know, past Mikey obviously did not know that.
Gus is number 14, Luvdisc. Luvdisc is actually tied with
this one I
Delibird
can't
for having the 4th lowest base stat total of all fully evolved Pokemon. A completely useless 330. Anything short of it being as easy to find as Magikarp is inexcusable with that base stat total. In reality, Luvdisc is found at the same places as Corsola, Route 128 and Evergrande City, plus the Victory Road, but only in Gen 6. It's easier to find than Corsola, but it's still only 2 small locations across the entire map. It of course bothers me that this uselessly weak Pokemon is only found in a few select locations at the end of the game. But it also bothers me even more because it's necessary. The only way to get more heart scales after the predetermined ones in Hoenn is to get them off of Wild Luvdisc. That is crazy to me. I don't
when it already has like such a low rate.
Expect heart scales to be easy to get because the move reminder is kind of a special thing, like okay, but the fact that you have to go out of your way and spend time fishing up a weak Pokemon you're not going to use for anything else, I don't know, it just bothers me. That wraps up Hoenn Pokemon, so next I want to talk about 2 Sinnoh Pokemon at the same time. Number 15, Burmy, and number 16, Cherubi. Burmy's fully evolved forms, Wormadam and Mothim,
Wormadam always be catching stray.
fit the stereotype of weak bug types. Mothim and all of Wormadam's forms only have a base stat total of 424, just a bit higher than other early game bug types like Butterfree or Ariados. Clearly, they are not Pokemon worthy of much usage past about the midpoint of a playthrough. As for Cherubi, its fully evolved form is Cherrim. Its base stat total is 450, which is better than any Pokemon we've discussed so far. The problem is that it is designed to get stronger with its alternate form under Harsh Sun, but that alternate form boosts its special defense and physical attack, even though its special attack is superior. While its base stat total isn't as low as other Pokemon in this video, its bad ability design is enough for me to consider this Pokemon weak. So Mothim, Wormadam, and Cherrim are not really useful Pokemon, and to me seem like they should be early route Pokemon. However, they're actually pretty darn difficult to find because they're only found on honey trees. Honey
I hate those goddamn honey trees. They're the fucking worst.
trees require you to slather honey on a tree, then wait 6 hours, 6 hours
those
for a
so
Pokemon
bad.
to hopefully show up. Which it may not. There's a 9 to 10% chance that it will not. This is the table of honey tree encounters. It is a bit confusing, but the bottom line is that for most trees in Diamond and Pearl, you have about an
No, I
overall
would typically advocate to save the trees, but definitely not the ones in Sinnoh.
chance of getting Burmy 11% of the time,
I hate those goddamn trees so much. It's like actually personal.
and Cherubi about
I just wanted a Munchlax.
7.5% of the time. The chances are better in Platinum, but still not easy to get. If you look at the other Pokemon, there are clearly lots of other Pokemon available, but all the other ones are either strong Pokemon like Heracross, or they can be found elsewhere like Wurmple. The one exception is Munchlax. It's not an entry in this video because Snorlax is a strong Pokemon,
Snorlax
but it is
very
so
good.
incredibly hard to find and so time consuming to find, it might be the rarest Pokemon in all of Pokemon. So even for the Dex, I'm not sure it's worth it. More information in my rarest Pokemon in every game video. So in summary, Burmy and Cherubi take a minimum of 6 hours to maybe get.
I'm
and
good.
that to me
I don't
is
have
just
that time,
not
brother.
worth it. Next, I'd move on to Unova, but there's no Unova Pokemon for me to discuss. They did a good job of making rare Pokemon strong and weak Pokemon easy to find. The next 3 Pokemon I'm gonna talk about together. One Pokemon from Kalos, one from Alola, and one from Galar. The 3 Pikachu clones of those regions, number 17 Dedenne, 18 Togedemaru, and 19 Morpeko. These Pokemon
God, the freaking mice. Oh.
are all underwhelming in power, having base stat totals
Yeah,
around
that's fair.
430. This is better than previous
That's
Pikachu
fair.
clones like
There's no
Pachirisu and
defending
Plusle,
that.
but it's still not very good. There are better electric types available, but honestly, I'm okay with them not being super strong. To me, Pikachu clones have always been more merch Pokemon. They're designed to
absolutely.
sell toys
Absolutely.
and merch and be cute and art, not really be super strong
I
Pokemon.
say with my freaking, I bought like one of those like Pokemon remint blind boxes, and it was the one with like Goldango, Tinkaton, like Jirachi. It was a bunch of steel Pokemon, and I wanted it because I wanted, I really, really wanted the Tinkaton or the Goldango, but I ended up pulling the Pikachu, and I think it was this little shit right here, Togedemaru. There we go. And it's cute, I guess, but I wanted the Tinkaton.
Pokemon. So I get it. They're supposed to be popular. So why are they so hard to find? Dedenne
Real.
is found on one route in Kalos with only a 5% encounter rate. Togedemaru
Awesome.
is found in only one place in Alola with a 10% rate, but you do get the gift totem for it in Ultra Moon. Morpeko is found in 3 places, but never with an encounter rate better than 5%. Previous Pikachu
What's your
clones are found
favorite?
in
Probably, I do like Morpeko, and I do like, I like Mimikyu a lot. And Molga's pretty cool too.
either a lot more places with a much higher encounter rate or both. I just don't really understand why they made these Pokemon that are intended to be popular hard to find. And the final Pokemon is number 20, Pincurchin. Its base stat total is only
I love
435
this
and it has a pretty
guy.
bad stat spread, being incredibly slow while also having poor HP. Its hidden ability Electric Surge is cool, but it's too bad of a Pokemon to warrant using it when better terrain setters like Rillaboom exist. Despite that though, in the base game of Sword and Shield, it's only found in max raid battles and with a 5% random encounter rate on Route 9. It's made more easily available in the DLC, but the fact that it's so tricky to find in the base game, yet is not a useful Pokemon, to me just makes it not worth it. Be sure to pick up some
Oh,
merch
yeah,
from
100%.
mjtvmerch.com, and thank you so much for watching. With an extra special thanks to my patrons over on Patreon who help support my channel independent of fluctuating YouTube ad rates. If you want to help support me in the same way, the link is in the description below. Also, if you want to check out some more of my fun Pokemon content, I recommend these videos here. All right, that's all I have for now. So until next time, be fans. Gotta catch
Gotta
them
catch 'em
all.
all. Hell yeah. Oh my gosh, just from 4 years ago. Dunsparce better not be on this list. Click on Or it's too late. Oh, that's so funny. Oh, man. Delivered is one of the few Pokemon in Johto that was given the flee mechanic, meaning it can run away from you if you encounter it in the wild. I spent hours trying to catch one as a kid, but between its low encounter rate, low catch rate, and willingness to flee, I never managed it. I never knew mean look existed back then. I think that this person's so real. I didn't understand what mean look meant until later on, so I completely get it. Alrighty. Wow, we have our last video for the day. Listen, guys. Listen. We all know why Incineroar is the best Pokemon. Because of Wolfie. That's the only reason why I know. So I guess I will just have him explain to me the actual details as to why Incineroar is the best Pokemon ever. So we're going to be watching Why This Stupid Cat is the Best Pokemon Ever by Wolfie VGC.
If you haven't played a Pokemon game in a while and somebody asked you what you thought the best Pokemon of all time was, you'd probably say something like Mewtwo. If you've played
Fuck Mewtwo.
a decent amount of Pokemon over the last 2 decades, you might say something like Groudon or Kyogre. If you consider yourself more than a casual fan, you'd probably answer something like Mega Rayquaza or Zacian. But if you've played
Good
a ton of
choices.
Pokemon, you'd know the answer is obvious because it isn't really even up for debate. The best Pokemon ever is Incineroar. Some of
This goddamn fucking cat.
you may be confused. Incineroar? The starter from Alola? The Smash Bros. Ultimate character?
Yes.
The thing that haunts my nightmares? Yes. The thing is, what makes Incineroar the best Pokemon ever isn't immediately obvious. It doesn't have stats that make Mewtwo look like Flittle. It doesn't have some stupid signature ability. It doesn't have a move that made me throw up the first time I saw it, or any one utterly broken tool that makes it game-breaking. How could it
Yes.
possibly be stronger than all-time great Pokemon like Kyogre, Mega Rayquaza,
I don't know,
or
Mr.
Screamtail?
Wolfie.
Huh,
You
that's a
tell
really good
us.
list. I bet whoever made it is like super good looking. Well, to understand what makes Incineroar so strong, we have to get our hands dirty. For the full picture, it's gonna take some digging. Today, I want to talk about why Incineroar is the best Pokemon
Quirky,
ever
give it a
made.
follow.
To do this, we need to start at the beginning. Not the beginning of Pokemon, but the beginning of our nightmare. In Generation 7, with the release of Pokemon Sun and Moon. But Incineroar's introduction to the
team player,
world of
man.
competitive Pokemon was lackluster. In fact, despite the first year of Sun and Moon using a rule set of legal Pokemon that was very limited, allowing for a lot of creativity and Pokemon selection, Incineroar's usage was below 1%.
Oh
Now,
my
I know what you're
goodness.
thinking. How could a Pokemon that performed so badly in its debut season possibly be the greatest Pokemon of all time? Wouldn't it be nice if that had been true? The thing is, when Incineroar was first released, it was missing something very important. But we'll get to that in
What
a little
was
bit.
it?
In the first year of Sun and Moon, there was basically no reason to use Incineroar because there was a better fire-type Pokemon, Arcanine.
Arcanine. Were people just looking at it at a way it's like, oh, yeah, fire type, we have Arcanine, so we don't need Incineroar. Did nobody figure out that it was like a really good supporting mon?
What made Arcanine so good
I don't know, but I don't know. Would you consider Incineroar a supporting mon? I guess like a start at like a team mon, yeah.
was in large part its access to the ability Intimidate, one of the
But
best competitive
Incineroar
abilities
has
of
that
all
too.
time. The combination of Intimidate and good stats with Fire's great defensive typing would allow Arcanine to become the #1 most used Pokemon at the time. But this blissful period, okay, Sun and Moon weren't exactly blissful with Z-moves KOing Pokemon through
Yeah.
Protect, but this
Rough
relatively
time.
blissful period wouldn't last long. The cat couldn't be contained by a cage, and in early 2018, Pokemon made the biggest mistake of the entire
Oh,
franchise.
no.
Bigger even than putting this tree in Sword and Shield. They gave Incineroar Intimidate.
Oh,
This might not
God!
sound like a very big deal. It's not like Incineroar got a Mega Evolution or a new form. It just got access to an ability that isn't even all that rare. You can probably think of a couple pretty infamous Intimidate
Is
users
this
right
what
now.
sent it into the like S tier Pokemon? The fact they gave Incineroar Intimidate?
But unfortunately, even though it might not sound too imposing, This one change would forever alter the course of competitive Pokemon.
Oh,
like I
my
said, Intimidate
goodness.
is arguably the best ability in the game. There's a couple reasons why. First, in Pokemon, almost all damaging moves are either physical attacks or special attacks. And typically, the balance between them is about 50-50. Intimidate lowers the physical attack of both opponents every time the user hits the field. After just a single Intimidate, a Pokemon's physical attack stat is 2/3 of its starting value.
Rip.
After a second Intimidate, that's down to 50%. And these stat drops stick around until you switch your Pokemon out, making them extremely annoying. So Incineroar went from a Pokemon that basically didn't have an ability to a Pokemon with one of the best abilities in the entire game. And in doing so, all of the latent tools in Incineroar's kit were suddenly activated.
Incineroar's so stupid. I bet 6 Incineroar could beat
He's going crazy.
any team. Maybe 5 Incineroar. I should remake that Lions video.
What video?
Intimidate is extremely strong, but not strong enough to let just any Intimidate Pokemon give me nightmares. Intimidate is on other Pokemon that nobody wants to use, like Masquerain, Mightyena, Granbull. Okay, I might have tried some of these at one point or another, but normal people wouldn't be interested in using them. What I'm
Fair.
trying to say is that there's less Intimidate Pokemon that have been used than Intimidate Pokemon that haven't. So what makes some of these Pokemon better than others? And what makes Incineroar the best
Why
of them
are we
all?
looking at his
Well,
crotch?
when it comes to Intimidate, the ability becomes much more valuable the more often you're able to activate it during a battle. For a Pokemon like Mightyena, its base stats aren't high enough to allow it to repeatedly switch in without taking massive amounts of damage, even with Intimidate helping out. A Pokemon like Masquerain is slightly tankier, but has many more weaknesses, meaning it's still a liability to switch in. Gyarados, on the other hand, has good defenses and only 2 weaknesses, and Arcanine is even tankier. So at least part of our answer has to do with how easy it is to switch in the Intimidate user. That's mostly a combination of a Pokemon's base stats and its typing. The better your
Yes.
Pokemon is defensively, the more frequently you can activate Intimidate
That
during a
makes
battle.
sense.
Remember how
You know, I didn't think of it that way. That's why I love watching Woofy. I learned so much.
Arcanine was the #1 most used Pokemon in Sun and Moon's first competitive format, in large part due to its access to Intimidate? Well, why don't we compare the stats of Arcanine and Incineroar? When it comes to bulk, Incineroar is strictly better. With 5 more HP, 10 more defense, and 10 more
You're-
special defense, Incineroar has a meaningful advantage over Arcanine. In fact, Incineroar also has a higher attack stat. The only relevant stat where Arcanine has an advantage is its higher speed stat. But Incineroar's lower speed stat is actually more useful here, though I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's take a step back and think about what we're seeing here. Incineroar has strictly better stats than the #1 most used Pokemon in the format. Better than #1. And it has the exact
That's
same ability
crazy.
that enables
That Arcanine's very cute.
Arcanine to take the spotlight. Beginning to see why this might be a problem? Okay, but let's calm down. There is a key difference between Arcanine and Incineroar. Their typing is not the same. While Arcanine is a pure fire type Pokemon, Incineroar is both fire and dark. Surely having this
Yes.
extra type hurts more than it helps, right? Right? Wrong. Incineroar's typing is pretty much a strict upgrade compared to Arcanine's. Both Arcanine and Incineroar are weak to rock, water, and ground attacks. But Incineroar
Okay.
is also weak to fighting moves. Being a dark type, however, has several benefits in exchange for this one additional weakness. First, Incineroar gains resistances to dark and ghost, with ghost
That's
being an
pretty good.
especially difficult type to resist. This puts Incineroar's total resistances and immunities at 7, a stupidly
That's a
high
lot.
number for a non-steel type Pokemon. Second, Incineroar gains an immunity to psychic attacks. Immunities are incredibly valuable in competitive Pokemon, as they're one of the only ways to completely negate damage. And this was especially valuable in Sun and Moon because of the powerful psychic type Pokemon running around. Tapu Lele set up the psychic
Nods,
terrain with
nods,
its
nods.
ability and could output enormous amounts of damage. And the Pokemon Company then unleashed Ultra Necrozma, who had access to the signature Z move, Light That Burns My Eyes, a move with a whopping 200 base power. Incineroar
a
being
lot.
immune to these ridiculously strong attacks is just another absurd accomplishment on its resume. Being part Dark type has other benefits as well. Most notably, Dark type Pokemon are immune to attacks affected by the ability Prankster. Prankster is another of the
Lord.
best abilities in the game, and some of the most famous Pokemon in
Anti-prankster.
history make use of this powerful ability that gives non-damaging moves priority. Because the ability is so good, going into Sun and Moon, it was nerfed to no longer work on Dark-type Pokemon. As a slight aside, because it's so cool, in the finals of the 2017 World Championships, a player used this mechanic change to completely block an opponent's Z move.
Oh,
Whimsicott was using the
God.
move Nature Power, a move that is classified as a non-damaging move because it transforms into a different move depending on where the player is and what effects are present on the battlefield. The reason Whimsicott used this move is because it was paired with both Tapu Fini and Tapu Koko, with Nature Power transforming into Moonblast if Misty Terrain was up, and Thunderbolt if
That's such an interesting move.
Electric Terrain was up. And both
That
Z
is
moves
really
could be
cool.
accessed by holding the Normalium Z Crystal, because Nature Power is a normal move until it transforms. In other words, Whimsicott could use both Fairy and Electric Z moves by using Nature Power. In Game 3 of the finals of the World Championships, Whimsicott was staring down a Garchomp and saw an opportunity to take a KO by switching in Tapu Fini and launching the Z move for a surprise knockout. But the opponent predicted this and switched Garchomp into Mandibuzz, a Pokemon
Oh my
also weak
God.
to Fairy. But because Nature Power is a non-damaging move, it gets affected by Prankster and turns into a priority move, which is
Ah!
great, unless your opponent is a dark type like Mandibuzz, because in that case, you will completely
I hate this. I'm so sorry, Damper. I know you're a Whimsicott. Enjoy.
waste your once per battle Z move while
Yeah, this
also
is actually some 40 chess stuff.
doing no damage. Anyway, as you can
That's
see, being immune to
crazy.
dark type moves can make or break a battle. But there is a drawback to being a dark type. Incineroar gains another weakness, to fighting. And of course, having more weaknesses is a bad thing, but not all weaknesses are created equally. Some
True.
types are just strictly better than others. You'd pretty much always rather be weak to Bug than to Fairy, for example. And while fighting type moves are always present in competitive Pokemon,
Why does
they're
my
rarely
move
among
fail just because I'm Prankster? Just remove the priority when it targets a dark type. This sounds very, very personal.
the most common. And there's another reason why Incineroar's fighting weakness isn't actually that big of a deal. Nearly every relevant fighting type Pokemon is a physical attacker. This is partially because of how their stats are distributed, and partially because physical fighting type moves are far and away superior to special fighting type moves.
Oh,
and the reason these moves
100%.
being physical is such a big deal is because of Intimidate.
Intimidate!
While taking a super effective attack means you're taking 2 times as much damage, if that attack is physical and has been reduced by Intimidate, you're effectively only taking 33% more damage. A much more
Which isn't that bad.
manageable
For a
multiplier.
weakness.
And this doesn't just apply to Incineroar's fighting weakness, it's true of rock and ground type moves as well. While there are more special ground and rock type moves than fighting, the vast majority of times we see these types in competitive Pokemon, they're on physical attackers. So hitting Incineroar for actual meaningful super effective damage is a lot more difficult than it looks at first glance. The messed up thing is that Fire and Dark is such a good type combination, even not factoring in Intimidate. When I ranked every single type combination in the game, I put it at number 13 out of over 150. The fact
Oh
that
my
Intimidate
God, he actually did that.
just so happens to synergize incredibly well with it is just a fun little bonus. Today's video is sponsored by Honkai Impact 3. It's a
Whoa!
sci-fi adventure game developed by Hoyoverse.
I've never played this game, but I've always heard great things.
The game now has a 3D combat system and supports free jumping, which really enhances gameplay. Players now can fight monsters and defeat bosses in the air, which, I mean, who doesn't love a little
watched
aerial
that for my
combat? On
Infinite
top of that,
Fusion
players can climb
playthroughs.
onto the
We're
walls, which adds
studying for it.
complexity to the battlefield. And now,
Oh my
players
gosh.
can directly play Part 2. A brand new story, entirely new worlds, and new protagonists are available in Part 2.
Oh, she's
Making it
pretty.
the perfect time to join for both new and returning players.
It
Enhanced
looks
character
really nifty,
modeling
but my
reveals
attention for gacha is low. That is so real.
more details than ever before, with more refined animation. There's also a new S-rank character called Senadina, not to mention other new characters like Coralie, Hylia, and Songkyu. You can even get Coralie for free. Plus, you can get 1 S-rank character and 1 outfit from Part 1. Download Honkai Impact 3 now and use the redeem code TRIP2MARS to get tons of rewards. rewards. Thanks again to Honkai Impact 3rd for sponsoring this video.
Shout
Of
out
course, being able to
Toyovers.
switch in and intimidate down your opponent without taking too much damage isn't the only thing that makes a Pokemon good. They need to be able to actually
I am just saying, for those who are in stream, and I will be playing Nikke on Monday. So that Nikke for the first time. So I just want to preface that I am not a gooner.
contribute to the battle after
Just had to
switching
put
in,
that out
so
there.
they're not just dead weight. The easiest way to contribute to a battle is to deal damage. It's not
Yes.
rocket science. But Incineroar is a support Pokemon, so you'd think that doing damage wouldn't be its forte. And if you did think that, you'd be kind of right. Incineroar rarely looks like it's doing a Zacian impression. It's not going to be the Pokemon sweeping through your opponent's team. However, most support Pokemon really struggle to do damage, often because Pokemon that are bulkier tend to have worse offensive stats. Pokemon like Cresselia, Amoonguss, Whimsicott, Indeedee,
Among Us?
Porygon 2,
Pokemon
and more, at
591?
best are able to gradually chip down their opponents, contributing a little damage over time if you ignore them for too long. Incineroar, however, is built different. With an attack stat higher than Arcanine's, it's not a Pokemon you can afford to ignore. And with its fire-type move Flare Blitz's huge base power, Incineroar is capable of KOing many frail Pokemon in 2 hits, even without super effective damage. And that's not to mention that Flare Blitz also has a chance to burn. Isn't that fun? And if you can even believe it, Flare Blitz is the least problematic of Incineroar's moves. Incineroar
Least
also gets a
problematic.
signature Dark-type move called Darkest Lariat. Because yeah, why not give it a signature move? Darkest Lariat was used occasionally as it ignores defense boosts, but it wasn't
I
normally
love when he spins. It's so funny.
Incineroar's Dark-type move of choice. That honor instead goes to Knockoff. This 65 base power move not only removes the item of any Pokemon it hits, it also becomes 50% stronger if the target is holding an item. After the damage
That's pretty
boost,
good.
Knockoff is comparable in power to strong moves like Stone Edge, except instead of, missing 20% of the time, it instead removes the item of whatever it hits. Knockoff means even in the situations where Incineroar isn't immediately threatening a ton of damage, it can still be a complete nuisance if you think you can ignore it. But Knockoff also isn't Incineroar's most problematic move. Now
it
we get to
Fake
talk
Out?
about one of the best supporting moves of all time,
Yay,
Fake Out.
I
Fake Out is a
guessed
move
it!
with enough
It was obvious.
increased priority that it goes before almost all standard moves, and if it hits a target, it causes them to flinch, being unable to act for the turn. The catch is that Fake Out only works on the first turn after a Pokemon switches in. Fake Out is so strong because it allows players to control the pace of the battle. With Fake Out, you can use your partner to attack into a Pokemon that can't protect, or to buy yourself a turn to save a Pokemon that was under a lot of pressure. You can use it to temporarily invalidate a threat to let one of your other Pokemon set up. And you can even use the threat of Fake Out to scare your opponent into protecting, letting you switch out for free. You'll never be upset to have Fake Out on your team
good.
since it offers such high value and is useful in virtually every matchup. Not to mention that Fake Out is one way for Incineroar to not be bothered by its lower speed stat, since it has such high priority. But the really cool thing is that Fake Out synergizes so well with Intimidate. Since Intimidate and Fake Out both become active whenever Incineroar is switched in. As long as you can switch Incineroar out safely, you'll be able to access both Fake Out and Intimidate multiple times per battle.
That's
Gee,
so
it sure would be
silly.
funny if Incineroar got some kind of, specialized tool to let it switch out easier, huh? Wouldn't that just be swell?
That would be really nice,
It's
wouldn't
finally
it?
time to talk about the stupidest move that they gave to Incineroar, U-Turn.
U-turn.
This bug-type move does a little damage and then lets the user switch out. Even with every other thing the Pokemon Company gave to Incineroar, it still might have been manageable if they just
Pokemon Company
had
said Merry Christmas to Incineroar and gifted it U-turn.
given it U-Turn. It's not that U-Turn is some absurd damaging tool. It's weaker than Incineroar's other moves,
Yeah,
and
Parting
Bug
Shot
isn't
as well.
exactly a good type.
Yeah,
What makes U-Turn so
it doesn't
broken
have
is
U-turn anymore, but it has Parting Shot.
the
which is
ability to
similar.
switch out after you hit something with it. Doing a little damage and switching out doesn't sound very exciting at first glance. After all, every Pokemon can switch out. But there is a key distinction here. U-Turn lets you switch out after you attack. Normally, switching is one of the riskiest things you can do in a Pokemon battle. You're
That's
sacrificing your
true.
ability to do damage for the turn and bringing in a Pokemon who is completely vulnerable, unable to attack or protect. A bad switch can lose you the game if you let a key Pokemon take too much damage. The trade-off is that switching allows you to save a Pokemon currently in danger and bring out a Pokemon with a better matchup. Overall, I'd say it's a really well-balanced mechanic, but Incineroar completely breaks it. Thanks to its low speed stat, Incineroar is able to move after your opponent has already attacked for the turn. And with U-turn, it's able to bring in one of your other Pokemon after your opponent has already attacked. This completely mitigates the drawback of switching in one of your Pokemon and allows Incineroar to switch itself out, resetting both Intimidate and Fake Out. This one inclusion in its move pool takes Incineroar from one of the best support Pokemon of all time to the very best. Everything in its kit synergizes so well together, and it has no obvious weaknesses. Incineroar was so good once it got Intimidate that it literally killed off one of the best Pokemon of all time, Landorus Therian. Just like Incineroar, Landorus gets access to Intimidate and U-turn, but unlike Incineroar, it's better utilized as an offensive Pokemon. Because of this, Landorus has a much harder time making use of U-turn as a defensive tool, using it instead as an offensive move to do damage to grass and psychic type Pokemon who can give it trouble otherwise. Ever since Incineroar's hit its stride, Landorus usage has plummeted, and Landorus has never won a World Championships while Incineroar has been legal. So now that you know what makes Incineroar so strong, let's go back to 2018 when Intimidate Incineroar was first introduced. At this point, players hadn't yet realized how good Incineroar was, and in part due to Landorus being a great Z-move user while Incineroar was mediocre with the mechanic. At the World Championships that year, Incineroar was second in usage to Landorus. However, despite being present on fewer teams than Landorus, Incineroar took every spot in the top 4 finishers, while Landorus was only present on 2 of those teams. Of course, Incineroar's great performance this year would be laughable compared to the utter domination it would show in 2019. The next year's format was the final format of Sun and Moon, and it featured a different rule set than 2018. The rule set is known as a restricted format, which means that players are allowed to use 2 super powerful Pokemon on their teams. Now, you might expect Incineroar to do worse in a restricted format. After all, Pokemon like Groudon and Kyogre can much more easily deal damage to Incineroar.
But like, wouldn't he also shut them off too in the beginning?
Being one of the only Pokemon that can KO it in one hit. But here's the thing. The stronger the Pokemon are, the more valuable Intimidate is, the more valuable Fake Out is, and the more valuable being able to switch in one of your super powerful Pokemon for free is. Incineroar very quickly became the king. At the 2019 World Championships, Incineroar was present on over 83% of teams. The single highest usage of any Pokemon in the history of the game by a long shot. In 2018, Landorus T was used on 61% of teams as the most used Pokemon in the tournament. For comparison, this kind of usage indicates that Incineroar wasn't just good, it wasn't even just great. It was nearly mandatory on every team at the top level. Its ability to do so many different things at once, combined with various tools against the super strong restricted Pokemon, meant you needed to have a really good reason to leave it off your team. A reason only a handful of players found. Oh yeah, we haven't even talked about how its dark typing this year was a total game changer, giving it a great matchup against new restricted Pokemon, Lunala, Solgaleo, and Ultra Cosma. One thing that makes Incineroar so hard to deal with is the fact that it's a support Pokemon. When an offensive Pokemon is dominating tournaments, players can invest in more niche Pokemon that happen to have a good matchup against it, such as Bronzong to slow down Xerneas. The idea is, as long as your Pokemon is decent enough, if your opponent brings the threatening offensive Pokemon to the battle, they'll need to deal with your counter. And if they leave it behind, then they've just given up a lot of their offense and one of their more threatening tools.
Just screwed.
It's not like there isn't counterplay to Incineroar. Pokemon like Competitive Milotic and Defiant Bisharp saw play in some formats. But the problem was, nobody was relying on Incineroar for damage. They could afford to leave it behind if the opponent prepared too much for it, or keep it off the field until the threats were neutralized. Plus, these Pokemon that match up well into Incineroar tended to have a harder time when they weren't boosted by it, making them a liability at times. Ultimately, all the power was in the hands of the Incineroar player. But after Incineroar's dominance at the 2019 World Championships, there was at last a ray of hope. After 2 years being beaten down by Incineroar, players could see salvation. Sword and Shield. Pokemon doesn't get balance patches. Unlike games like Teamfight Tactics, which receive a balance patch every 2
Fun
weeks,
game.
or an emergency patch when something is really out of line, thank you, Mort Dog, Pokemon at best
Shout out
receives
to
balancing
Mort Dog.
changes every 3 years when a new generation
League of
comes
Legends
out.
mentioned?
This was the light at the end of the tunnel. Surely the Pokemon Company would see how insanely broken Incineroar was and nerf it in some way. Finally, we could find peace. They buffed it? They gave it one of the single largest buffs any Pokemon has ever.
No way!
Received in the entire history.
Yeah, let's buff the Pokemon that has an 83% pick rate at like competitive tournaments. That's crazy.
Of the game? Remember how we talked about how strong U-turn was? Well, the good news is that it's now mostly obsolete. The bad news is that that's because they gave Incineroar an upgraded version of it called Parting Shot. This move is just like U-turn in that it switches the user out after it connects. However, unlike U-turn, which does a little damage, Parting Shot lowers both the attack and the special attack
As if the attack didn't need to be lowered again.
of whatever it hits. That's right, Incineroar can now double down on physical attackers and weaken special attackers, the only class of Pokemon it couldn't weaken before. Thanks,
That is
Pikachu.
so funny.
There was an attempt at balancing Incineroar. Certain old abilities were
Attempt means, if he's saying attempt, I'm not confident that it was a successful attempt.
reworked to be immune to Intimidate, and Fake Out didn't work on Dynamax Pokemon because they couldn't flinch. But the Pokemon who had these reworked abilities were across the board pretty mediocre, and the ability to weaken a Dynamax Pokemon's offenses with Intimidate and Parting Shot more than made up for the inability to flinch. We can't say too
That's
much
so
about Incineroar's
funny.
performance during the first 2 years of Pokemon Sword and Shield, as due to the pandemic, in-person major events were canceled. What we
Rip.
can say though is that of the 4 online events the Pokemon Company held to replace in-person events, called the Players Cup 1 through 4, Incineroar won all 4. Every single
Awesome.
one. Okay, to be fair, one of those was my fault, so yeah, my bad.
I love how he's just like, yeah, one of them was me. My bad, guys. I'll take responsibility for this one.
But in 2022, in-person tournaments returned again with another restricted format. And Incineroar won every single major in the US, every single
Awesome.
major in Europe except one where it finished second, every single major in Australia, nearly every single major in the rest of the world, all 3 international level tournaments, and the World Championships. Incineroar was used on 74% of all teams at the World Championships in 2022, finishing on
Amazing.
7 of the top 8 teams in the tournament. While this is technically lower usage than the World Championships in 2019, it's, in my opinion, just as impressive as even more Pokemon were viable in 2022 that hadn't been in 2019. So having Incineroar continue to be so mandatory on almost every team, despite the wider field, is an impressive feat. Which brings us to
Agreed.
Scarlet and Violet. And in 2023, Incineroar was not in the game for the first year of competition. But just recently, Incineroar was added back into the game with the Indigo Disc DLC, which meant an opportunity for Pokemon to correct their mistake. After 2
But did they?
generations and 5 years of complete Incineroar domination, surely this time they're gonna nerf it.
Surely.
They buffed it again? Are you kidding me? Okay, so this buff is smaller, but it is still a big deal. Incineroar was given Helping Hand, a move that goes before all other moves and powers up its partner's attack by a whopping 50%. This is
so
an amazing
funny.
move, and it's extremely valuable on a support Pokemon like Incineroar. However, they did add more counterplay this time around that has actually succeeded in slowing, not stopping Incineroar. First, 2 new items were added, Covert Cloak and Clear Amulet. Covert Cloak stops the secondary effects of moves, making Fake Out not flinch, while Clear Amulet prevents a Pokemon's stats from being lowered by Intimidate or Parting Shot. These items are massive, as is the fact that inner focus Pokemon are stronger now than during Sword and Shield, in part due to their synergy with Chen Pao and the benefit they receive from terastallization. On top of the items, several new Pokemon were added with anti-Incineroar abilities. Dondozo has Oblivious, making it immune to Intimidate, and Kingambit and Annihilate are both Pokemon with Defiant, powering them up if any stat is dropped. Not to mention, Terra Ghost is a great defensive tool on fast and frail Pokemon to get around Fake Out in a pinch. And so it came to be that when Incineroar was finally added to the game, top competitive players were shocked to find it actually manageable. They started calling it Mid-Cineroar. YouTubers were making videos saying it was washed and that it fell off, and to a certain extent, I get it. We were used to a level of dominance from Incineroar that was unmatched by any other Pokemon, and with the new counterplay available, it finally felt like, well, just a good Pokemon. At the first tournament after Incineroar was added to the game, its performance was disappointing. Only 2 finishes in the entire top 8. Was this it? Was Incineroar finally brought back to Earth? Had the king been toppled from his throne?
Save himself from this one. The flare
Just
whip
kidding,
from the
no.
Incineroar is gonna deal so much damage to the Urshifu to put it on one last life. And with that attack, Wolf Glit becomes your Charlotte regional champion.
The king is back, ladies and gentlemen.
Nope.
That's so funny. That is so funny. Just the humble bragging deserved. Winning regionals is not an easy feat. Oh. Just wait until you see Mega Incineroar's brand new ability. Screw you! That lowers all your stats by 6 stages. Pokemon just really loves Incineroar. For whatever reason. Anyways. I'm gonna wrap up today, guys. So, that's all I have today for reacting. But tomorrow, I'm actually gonna be streaming twice tomorrow. So, we're gonna be playing Pokemon Lazarus tomorrow at around noon. And then, we'll be having Pokemon D&D tomorrow with Joel, Nova, Slimbo, and Alessa. So, we'll be continuing our campaign from a while back. So, there'll be 2 streams tomorrow. You guys are really spoiled tomorrow. But yeah, that's all I have for you today. If you haven't done so yet, go join my Discord server, follow me on all my socials, Poseidon, Mythos on everything, and go buy my merch. And with that, I'm gonna head out. Everyone take care, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.